That's right, boys. It's Dr. Venkman. What's up, everyone? I'm JayDreamerZ, and normally we do this segment on Mondays, but some stuff's happening in my life, so I had to rearrange some things, and we're going to do this segment today. If you remember, normally we have members-only videos, so we can hang out. We might do like 2 videos next week, so I just want to say thank you for your patience and understanding as I go through some things here on my side of the world. So I'm excited. You know why? Not only am I talking about one of the greatest, amazing movies ever. This movie allowed people like myself to talk about the paranormal and strange things because it was cool. Like the Ghostbusters made this cool. It made it acceptable. It made it amazing. I did set up my microphone a little different, so hopefully I'm not too loud or clipping or anything. So if there's any issues with the audio, just type in @JayDreamerZ, let me know. The reason I wanted to actually talk about this movie in particular is because it relates to the plasma apocalypse that I also talk about here on my channel. I haven't really gone into great detail about it, so I thought I would do a truth in movies about the subject, which is the paranormal and ghosts. And then when we do our topic tomorrow, it's going to be about the ghost world, which is that part of the plasma apocalypse. Essentially, in short, what happens is whenever our magnetosphere comes down, the plasma sphere or plasma, whatever you want to call it, that wraps around our world, enters in and grounds itself, it fills this world with spiritual energy, whatever you want to call it, fills this world with ghosts, okay? Things come to life, there's electromagnetic influx all over the place, and I believe we're going to be seeing a lot of what people refer to as ghosts. Another interesting thing is I'm starting a new segment on my channel. It's going to be for the members. I just want to be able to give them something to show my appreciation for supporting my work. And it is, they can call in. It's called the campfire. So when I say I'm going to start the campfire, that means you can now call in. As long as you're a member, just go to the community tab, click on it, and you'll see the phone number right there. Please don't give it out because I would hate to have to change the phone number all the time. It's just for members, and it's to show my appreciation. So I'll go ahead and start that later on. You'll hear me say, let's start the campfire or whatnot, and that's whenever I'm taking calls. And you can totally call in if you want to. So with that being said, what's up to everyone? That sounds great, says Hans. Thanks, Hans. Right on. Unstance, Ozzy Morrison, Yokohama Mike, Stephanie McGuire, Loon Through the Ether. All right, well, let's jump right into things because we're going to go over Ghostbusters, not just part 1, not just part 2, but part 1 and 2. I'm not gonna actually get into like the newer Ghostbusters. I haven't seen them enough, and I feel like these are classic. So I feel like these are staples that most people should have seen already. If not, check it out, and you can watch with us. Stephanie McGuire says, "Who you gonna call? JayDreamerZ." So, one sec. Excuse me. All right, let's jump into some things. I want to do some screen sharing. I've got some pictures pulled up of screenshots of the movie, and we're going to go through some things here. And I do have the chat pulled up pretty big here on my side too. So if you want to get my attention, type in @JayDreamer with a Z at the end, JayDreamerZ, and it'll highlight here on my side and I'll see it. That way I can read your comment or your question. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to bring up, boom, some screen sharing, window capture type things, if it will let me. Uno momento, thank you. That would not be it. That would not be it. Where did it go? Should be here. Well, let's see here. Boom. This should do it. All right, cool. Well, I set this up already earlier. Technical difficulties. I'll be right with you guys. One sec. Thanks. Oh, sweet. It works. Okay, cool. It looks different on my side. All right, sweet. So we're going to start with Ghostbusters. Boom, the original. Part 1, okay? Now, a lot of people might not know, but the Ghostbusters was, I believe, actually written by the guy who plays Ray Stantz in the movie. And it's amazing. Okay, I love it. I want to jump right into it. This movie is all about the paranormal. It's all about ghosts. And when I talk about ghosts, I feel like a lot of people just use certain words like the word ghost as a label, a general label to slap on, something they saw that they don't know what it was, essentially. Or sometimes they do know exactly what it was and what it appeared to be like. And that's why I wanted to take some calls later on, a little later in our video, so I can hear some stories. I'm sure you guys all have ghost stories. And after all, our call-in segment is called The Campfire. So what a better place to share some ghost stories, right? Okay, so everything starts off in the library, right? The Ghostbusters get this call. Okay, actually, first let me back up a second, okay? I probably should have took some pictures earlier. But what happens is the Ghostbusters are actual academics that work at a college campus in New York, and they're teaching students, about the paranormal. They're looking into parapsychology and ESP and things of that nature, which is really interesting because Bill Murray's character actually encounters a guy that really has ESP. He's guessing these cards, and he starts to guess them right, but he keeps shocking them, and he's just testing it out. So these guys are real scientists studying real things electromagnetically, or you could call it the paranormal or whatnot, but they get kicked out of this school. And that's how the whole thing starts, right? These guys are essentially in the losers club. Academics is laughing at them, laughing at their research and whatnot. And they're like, hey, we have PhDs. Like, we're not studying something that maybe you're into, but that doesn't mean that it's not real. That doesn't mean there's not something to all of this that we talk about and that we share with people. So they get kicked out of the school. They're no longer teachers or professors. So they decide to go into business for themselves because they have the means to track ghosts. And some people saw my video I released where my brother was a guest. My brother Adam was a guest. He was an actual real ghost hunter in Florida, I believe. And I'm going to have him back on the show too, so he can give us a little more insight on it. But we skip forward a little bit to their very first call. Their first call was this library right here. And we got Ray Finkel's mom over here. Now, if you can see, the book is actually floating around. So some of this phenomena that happens when people see ghosts, I want to really get into the specifics of what it is and how it could possibly happen. I see a lot of this as being related to electromagnetics in our world, right? Especially when those electromagnetics go haywire and that energy, electricity, whatever you want to call it, takes different forms, okay? Now, that's not an all-encompassing statement. That's just one strong possibility of what many of these sightings could be. Just like UFOs in the sky, right? They're lights for the most part. So we see electromagnetic phenomena in the sky. People call it, it's a UFO. I don't know what it is. It's light in the sky. Must be alien craft or something, right? I feel like it's very similar with ghosts. Charlie Winchester's in the chat says, JayDreamerZ, have you seen Monster Hunter yet? I can't remember if I've seen that one, honestly. I'm going to have to check it out. I've heard of it. Yokohama Mike says, what's up, tribe? Friends of JayDreamerZ, be friends of mine. It's all perspective, says JayDreamerZ. I tell my friends about some of your breadcrumbs and it freaks them out. It's hard to teach this stuff. I know, right? That's why they're breadcrumbs. You don't need to teach anyone. You just leave a little piece out and see if they bite, right? All right, cool. So we're in the library. You see how this book right here is floating in the air? This is one of the phenomena that things defy gravity, right? Now, people in their mind, you don't see an entity right here. You don't see a person that's, translucent, that's holding the book and moving it from one place to another. You just see an object that's defying gravity. And I believe that there exist certain conditions where electromagnetic phenomena, if you like to call it that, can do things like this. They can become paranormal or alongside what is normally considered normal. It doesn't mean it's any less normal. It just means it's not acknowledged by mainstream academics, right? So these books start floating around. Oh, here it is. I got the card scene. I'm glad I did that. So he holds up this card and the nerdy, goofy guy over here is like, I don't know, it's a couple of wavy lines or something. And he lies. He's like, nope, sorry. He's totally flirting with the girl as well. But he's really studying this guy because he wants to see what the impact of negative energy is on people with ESP. Interesting, isn't it? We're going to talk about some of their other studies and their tests that they do later on too. But he really is actually doing his job, and he really is continuing to study ESP. He knows this guy over here has ESP. He guessed the card totally right? What are the odds of that? I mean, it could have been any shape whatsoever. So he shocks him. He gives him an electric shock to see how it affects him. Already we've brought electricity or electromagnetics into the picture, into play. We've connected it with ESP and things that are considered paranormal or fringe topics, if you will, right? All right, so the librarian, the old lady here, she's being interviewed by the Ghostbusters. They really go there. They ask her some normal questions, like, hey, do you have any mental problems? Do you take drugs? Do you drink a bunch? Like normal questions, right? They have to ask this stuff to just sort of get the easy answers out of the way to see if it's genuine or not, right? Because not every story is genuine, There's anomalies, there's mistakes that people make in their perception, etc. So they're being scientists and they're asking questions to get to the bottom of it. Right? It's not that they don't believe her. It's that they have to take her through certain steps. She says it definitely had arms because it reached out for me. Now, time out. I just want to talk real quick about that. I believe that many of these instances and many of these occurrences are essentially pools of an influx of electromagnetic activity. We'll call it like that. Okay. I don't know if I have the right words to describe it, but that's how I'm going to describe it today. And if it is a plasma or a plasmic phenomena that these people are seeing, or an electromagnetic phenomena that these people are seeing, it makes sense to me that plasma develops kind of like how we develop, right? It's got a branch, it's got like a trunk, it branches out into like other streams and stuff like that. We kind of take the shape of how plasma works, right? That's why we branch out from our trunk or our torso, and we have a head and arms, and those branch out into fingers, and our feet branch out into toes, etc., right? Plasma beings, light-filled beings, whatever you want to call it. I believe that that's what she's describing here. Arms and reach out for her. This part right here is one of my favorite parts. I had to include this in this breakdown. So they come across this stack of books, right? Now, Peter, which is Bill Murray right here, he's kind of represents the skeptics, right? He has an open mind, but he's very skeptical, right? It's hard to convince him. He's got to have hardcore proof of things, right? So they come across this stack of books. And Ray is like, symmetrical book stacking. Just like the influx of 1812. I don't know what he said. I can't remember the line. But he gets so childlike, and I love it. I love it, right? I like how these guys all balance each other out, right? Ray with his childlike innocence, Egon with his very logical thinking mind, and then we've got Peter. Peter means father, by the way. All these names are very significant. But Peter is sort of in the middle. He's the reasonable person. He's not going to jump straight to the creative side. He's not going to jump straight to the logical side. He's going to be balanced out and hear both sides and see what's going on. So he's like, you're right, Ray. No human would stack books like this, which was the funniest thing ever, right? It cracks me up. So I just want to skip that part. So the librarian turns into a ghost, okay? A ghost, right? And it's so funny. They don't know what to do. They've never encountered this before, so they're winging it, right? And he's like, get her! And he had this plan of how they're going to capture the ghost. This is before they had their actual like mechanism, their trap, in order that opens up, okay? This little door opens up and it sucks in the ghosts. I think this is also, there's some symbolism going on there with our world, and our world being the box that sucks in the ghosts in the first place and traps them in here and keeps them in here. And also it can be opened up and released, which is represented by the containment center that the Ghostbusters have in their firehouse base or whatever. And we're going to check that out here in a bit too. So we move forward a bit, right? This girl, Dana, she's one of like the main characters. She's Sigourney Weaver. She's played by Sigourney Weaver. She comes into her house and these eggs start cooking spontaneously on her cabinet, right? They pop up and they start cooking right there. Now, wait a minute. That is also electromagnetic phenomenon, okay? Electricity can turn up the heat on certain objects when it's running through it, and it can cook eggs. It can make things hot. It can do all kinds of interesting and amazing things. Plasma and electromagnetics have far-reaching capabilities. I'll just say that. Also, there's a little Easter egg there of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which we're gonna talk about in a bit. Okay, so we'll come back to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Now, this is the tower. Dana lives like right up here in the corner area of this building. It's pretty impressive, actually. This is obviously it's not a real building in New York. I've been there. I've never seen this building. So this is just put in there, which I thought was pretty cool. But look at this. Like, there's this weird torch-looking tower type thing. This building actually becomes almost like a character in the movie. That's how important it is. They stop and they talk about this building and its structure a few times in the movie. We're going to get to that. And I'm going to tell you why it's important and why they point out the structure of the buildings in a bit. But I do want to just let you know and give you a little preview. I have been researching the mudfloods and the mudflood theory, and there's a lot of really interesting and compelling arguments to be made for that. But especially when it comes to building structure and why our old structures of buildings look so much different than our newer ones do, right? The classical ages versus the modern age. We're going to talk about why that's important here in a bit too. Just some teasers to start off with. Now, check this out. So Venkman goes over to her apartment, right? He's totally a hound dog. He's trying to flirt with her and stuff like that. And he doesn't believe her, essentially. Like, he needs to see proof. You know what I mean? He's a skeptic. And she's like, are you going to check the refrigerator? Like, this girl opens up her refrigerator and there's like another world in there. Do you remember whenever I shared with you the Love, Death, and Robots breakdown, and there was a whole world inside of this freezer or refrigerator or ice box, whatever you'd like to call it? Similar things are happening. She opens up the refrigerator. Why is it a refrigerator? That there's this whole other world in, right? I believe there are certain things in movies and books and stuff like that that represent our world on a small scale. Okay, whenever you see someone open up a refrigerator or an ice box or a freezer, whatever you want to call it, and there's like a little world in there, just like in Men in Black when they open up the little locker and they poke their heads in and there's a whole little world in there, or there's a way bigger world. That is representative of our sky opening up and revealing the fractalverse that lies beyond. Or our sky opening up and like kind of sucking in other parts of the fractalverse into our world and shrinking them down. So she hears this voice coming from the refrigerator. And why is it a refrigerator? Why is it a freezer? That's because our world, I believe, is, also possibly surrounded by ice. There's an ice wall. I have other videos on that. You don't have to believe in that in order to follow the symbolism. But essentially, our world is a dark, cold place, when in comparison to what lies beyond in what people call the heavens, okay, or the Elysian fields or space, whatever you want to call it. I don't think space is black at all. I think it's very bright, and this world is very dark and very cold, basically. All right, then we've got Slimer, right? I have to show Slimer to you guys. Slimer's amazing. I want to talk about the slime as well, but I took a picture of this because they call him a blob. Isn't that interesting? They call him a disgusting blob. There is an old movie, a horror movie, called The Blob, and it's just about this blob of, I don't know, plasma or whatever, that just floats around and just kind of takes things into it and kills people, essentially. It's supposed to be a horror movie, right? I believe, my theory is that the blob and Slimer and Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and some other things, these are all examples of electromagnetic phenomenon and what it looks like in its various forms. One of its forms is ball lightning. Okay. And I believe that things like ball lightning and St. Elmo's fire and stuff like that will go on the rise the closer and the closer we get to the end of times or Judgment Day or the Great Reset, whatever you want to call it. Charlie Winchester's in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, do you think there could be invisible plasma leaking in before the major stuff? Yeah, it's not, I don't know if it's leaking in, but we already have plasma in our atmosphere everywhere. But I think it's just, it pools together over time and it gets weaker and weaker. So wherever we find those pools of plasma or electromagnetic influx into our world, there tends to be interesting things happening in those areas, especially if somebody's born into that area at that particular time where the electromagnetics have pooled together in our world, right? And I think that gets a little into like astrology and stuff like that. So, yeah, for sure. I think it's very possible that plasma could leak into our world. I know energy comes into our world and fills it up. So boom, absolutely. Energy comes into our world, fills it up and pressurizes it. As it fills up, the sky is steadfast, but that energy gets in somehow, right? They also say that the stars are like portals or windows into the heavens. That means there's openings, right? So I'm with you on that. All right, so sweet. All right, so we've got the blob, which is Slimer. We've got plasma, obviously just shooting back and forth, right? They're trying to contain it and fight against it, etc. There's a lot of plasma symbolism in this movie. Now, the chandelier. Okay, so there's this scene where they're trying to catch Slimer or whatever, right? For the first time they meet him. And he ends up going into this room where there's this huge chandelier at the top. And that chandelier breaks and it falls down and they open the trap and the ghost gets sucked in. Let me stop right there because there's actually a lot of symbolism in this whole concept of a chandelier falling down and breaking. Okay, chandelier is glass typically, or something that's glass-like, and when it falls, it breaks, right? And also the chandelier represents like the stars of the heavens. So this chandelier literally represents the sky of our world, the highest, hardest glass ceiling, however you want to call it. This represents the sky and the stars. And they show the chandelier falling down because the stars fall to the ground, or at least they appear to fall to the ground, according to ancient religions and texts. Now, this was pretty interesting. As you can see, you got Ray right here in the middle, the Ghostbusters. Or there's Ray. There's Peter. And Egon. They're all right there. The other Ghostbuster hasn't made his appearance yet. He didn't get hired yet. But we got Apollo. I mean, not Apollo. Prometheus in the background, right? This is really interesting. This is the god, okay? The god. However you want to call that, okay? Whatever you want it, little g, however you want to call it. Prometheus is the god that brought fire, stole the fire of the heavens. The fire that is in the heavens. Another word for fire in ancient languages is just light. That's all. So they stole the light of the heavens, the fire from the gods, etc., and they brought it down here to earth. It's not regular fire, okay? There's nothing spectacular or miraculous about just regular fire. People imagine like cavemen trying to like rub sticks and stuff and I'm on fire, right? That's so ridiculous to me. Really? Those are your ancestors? Not mine. I'm sorry. We're dealing with plasma. We're actually intellectuals and wizards and stuff like that. We're not rubbing sticks and, following lightning to try to get a fire and walk around with it like a caveman, okay? This is Prometheus, okay? He is the one that brought the fire down to our world. And I believe that he's represented by the blue beam that shoots up into the sky, which I talk about in other videos. Now, another thing I want to also point out, I don't have any actual pictures of it, but I do want to say that all of this takes place around Christmas. It's the Christmas day. Hey, Peter Lachane! My bad, Lation. Peter Lation donated $5 through the super chat. It says, "Thank you, JayDreamerZ, for sharing your extraordinary information. I ordered a copy of your book as well." Hey, right on. I'm glad you got it, right? This is my book. I wrote a book about the plasma apocalypse and some other things, giants and Titans and Elves and stuff like that. So check it out if you'd like to. Thanks a lot for your donation, Peter. I appreciate you. Thanks for supporting my work. Janine. Okay, I just want to tell you I had a huge crush on Janine. She's like a cute little nerdy girl or whatever when I was growing up, so I thought it was cool. And this movie, like I said, made it cool to be different. Made it cool to ponder, to wonder about things that were not mainstream, about things that harken back to ancient times, dark times, whatever you want to call it. And I love it. And I want to say thank you to the Ghostbusters, whoever you may be, for opening that door for the rest of us. So Janine's on the phone and she's taking one of the calls and she says, "Is it just a mist or does it have arms and legs?" Interesting that she says, "Is it just a mist?" Right? Mist is also one of the parts of the plasma apocalypse. When the world depressurizes, the atmosphere expands, creates a worldwide mist or fog or smoke, however you'd like to see it. It's all perspective, right? And does it have arms and legs? She's trying to figure out what type of electromagnetics or plasma or whatever it is that they're dealing with. Hey, Silver Sister donated $5 through the super chat and says, "The blob or slime might represent fungus, mucus, or gluten in foods that can kill us." Ooh, I never even thought of that. That's a good point. Now, I want to get back to the slime. Thank you, Silver Sister, for your donation. I'm actually going to address the slime here in a bit because the slime is huge to Ghostbusters. I feel like it's a crucial part of all of this. And then what we're going to do, because I feel like this might be a longer video because we have a lot of pictures to go over. Look how it changed me. we're going to take a break later on. And when we come back from that break, that's when we're going to start the campfire and I'll take some calls. So if you have any good ghost stories, I would love to hear them. Okay. I have one myself, actually. So I wanted to point this out. This is the Ghostbusters little hideout, their base, whatever you want to call it. It's an old abandoned fire station. It's a real building that's still in New York. But the reason I wanted to point it out is because of the shape of the entryway. Isn't that something? It's an arch. It's like a perfect arch. Instead of just being a square door, which would make sense so it can open and close and stuff, it looks like this. I wonder why it looks like that, right? Well, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. We'll get back to it in a bit because you'll actually see this similar arch symbolism. I believe it has to do with magnetics. Magnets repel plasma. So plasma is repelled by a magnetic force. Hey, Ron G just donated $20 to the super chat. And he says, define the concept of, or the statement made of, he slimed me. Okay, I totally will. Not right now. We're going to get to the slime in just a bit. Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate your donation. I'm going to come back to your question. I'm going to answer it about the slime. We're going to get into the ooze and the slime and all this type of stuff. I'm going to tell you guys what I think that means. But basically, this right here is a magnet. Okay, if you charge this building up, this becomes a magnet. And the magnet repels or keeps out the ghosts. So this makes sense as to why this is their hideout. You know what I mean? All right, sweet. You got Ecto 1 there too, which is pretty cool. So she says, what's he doing in my ice box? It was actually a refrigerator. Ice box is technically like a term for a freezer. So she says icebox. I think that's interesting that they chose to put that into the movie because it has the word box in it. I believe our world is the box. When we say think outside of the box, think outside, think otherworldly is what I'm saying essentially. Here it is. There you can see it, right? This right here is a horseshoe magnet, one of the strongest, most powerful types of magnets that exists. And that happens to be the Ghostbusters hideout. Another interesting thing too, I don't know if I took a picture of it, but they really make a point of pointing out this pole, this fire pole that they slide down. Ray gets super excited about it. He's like, oh, have you guys tried the pole? You know, he slides down the pole or whatever. I think that's symbolic because we have the magnet here, right? Now think about Mount Meru or Rupus Negra. On the older maps, we've got Rupus Negra, which is the magnetic mountain or the black mountain, which lies, guess what, right at the middle of the North Pole. All of our compasses point in that direction. It's a highly magnetized part of our world, okay? And they have a pole inside of this magnet hideout. And I believe that that pole represents that blue beam that shoots up, indicating that the polarity reversal in our world, or the apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, is over with. Interesting, right? All right, so this is where this is the containment unit where the Ghostbusters actually store the ghosts that they catch, okay? It doesn't look like much, but it doesn't have to. It's really interesting because it's red, okay? Red typically, you see the red light right there. There's a lot of red light symbolism. If you ever see the red light flashing or red lights in movies and stuff, that's a great symbol and indicator that they're going to be talking to you about crazy, magical, paranormal, strange things because the red light indicates the red sky. Whenever our electromagnetic spectrum flips, right? And everything goes through that reset, gets past the neutral point, our sky, instead of being blue, turns red. Now, this is interesting. He says, this is where we store all of the vapors. There's another reference to fog or mist or vapor, whatever you want to call it, because our world fills up with that. Now imagine the world fills up with that vapor. And we're going to get into this in more detail. Right now I'm just kind of focusing on the movie. We're going to actually talk about the ghost world and how it's a part of the plasma apocalypse in detail, probably tomorrow. But imagine that there's just fog worldwide, right? And then you have got an influx of electromagnetic activity, and you've got like ball lightning, St. Elmo's fire, all these different forms all over the place. It's going to glow even more and look even more ghastly and ghostly, right? There's Winston, by the way. He finally joined up with the crew. You know what's interesting too? I'll give you guys some little trivia. Winston was actually supposed to be played by Eddie Murphy. Did you know that? He turned down the role. Hey, Angel Lovebud donated in the super chat. Thank you so much. I super appreciate you, Angel. I see you in the chat too. Hey, check this out. Ron G's in the chat. Thanks for your donation, Angel. I appreciate you. Ron G says, JayDreamerZ, it's in the flood, her refrigerator, through spell casting. It's in the... it's in the food. My bad. It's in the food through spellcasting. Okay, I gotcha. Oh, I got some popcorn from Angel. Right on. Thanks for the popcorn. All right, so let's check this out. Boom. We go on to the building, right? Now remember, they talk about this building a lot, and they talk about its structure, and they talk about its architecture and how it was built, and even the stuff that it's made out of. I'm gonna show you guys here in a minute. But as you can see, the lightning, this storm forms right above this building. What does this building symbolize, and what does it represent? This lightning's hitting the building. This is basically going to be ground zero, if you will, okay, for the ghost activity. Interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is the top of the building. As you can see, there are obelisks all the way around the top of this building. Just first and foremost, right? People might say, oh yeah, because they're evil and they're trying to conjure up evil things, and obelisks are evil because they're pagan. That's just all a bunch of mumbo jumbo nonsense and backwards talk. That means I'm not familiar with it, so it's the devil. It's the devil, right? From like Waterboy. Obelisks are the devil. I don't think so. Okay, obelisks, to me, based on my research so far, are ancient lightning conductors. They're designed to draw that influx of energy that we experience down to certain points. Okay, they want to use that energy. Now, we also have an altar here. I'm not going to get into altar symbolism too much right now, but I want to focus on these gargoyles. How interesting. There's these gargoyles at the top, right? Now, gargoyles I've talked about a few times in some of my videos, but essentially, the root of the word gargoyle is a fun word study. If you're into etymology, I highly recommend looking up the root of the word gargoyle. You're going to have to figure out some things on your own, but what I figured out is it's related to gorgon, gargling, gargamel, gargantuan, right? All these very similar things that harken back to the time of the Titans, the giants and the Titans. Now, allegedly, the Titans drowned during the last cataclysm, right? They didn't have anywhere to go. They don't have anything to really hold on to. They have no place of safety unless they go inside of the earth itself during this apocalyptic event. Titans, done, right? They are so gigantic and so massive that whenever liquefaction happens worldwide because of all the shaking and the water comes to the surface, the Titans tend to sink down into the earth itself. And if they're that huge, they themselves are like obelisks and lightning conductors. They're going to be one of the first things that these larger trunks of plasma hit. And that plasma is known throughout history to petrify. It's seen as sort of a petrification weapon of the gods. So that's where gargoyles come into play. Not only do gargoyles have the eternal curse of the Gorgons, etc., of drowning, because they put them on the buildings. Technically, they're supposed to be on the side of the building. This is more like statues. They're not so much gargoyles. They're more like statues. A real gargoyle is placed on the side of a building to divert the water when it rains, and it comes out of their mouth. They're constantly drowning forever. It's like a curse. And it's also a warning to others saying, hey, we lived through. Those massive godlike beings all died, and we didn't. We are the victors of this war. And just like the Titans were taken down, which they probably take credit for, I'm guessing, we will take you down too. So they put these gargoyles up to remind people, because it hits home at an esoteric, subconscious, or collective subconscious level for all of us, right? There's something kind of scary about it. We know it's some kind of a warning. I mean, why would you put these evil-looking things on like the sides of holy structures like churches and stuff, right? What's up, Charlie Winchester in the chat with my 300s? I appreciate you. Karen. Cypher No One. Good to see you guys. All right, cool. Let's go on to this next picture here. Okay, so Rick Moranis, right? I love Rick Moranis. So this is very interesting. I took a picture of this. You might think it's just some random picture. It's super not. Rick Moranis is known as the Keymaster, okay? It's actually not him. It's one of those dog things. You see these dog gargoyle things right here? Okay, one is the Keymaster and one is the Gatekeeper. They're essentially the two witnesses of Gozer, which is this main ghost bad guy that they fight in the end, right? So one of them possesses Rick Moranis, and he becomes the new vessel for what's known as the Keymaster. The Keymaster, the person who has the ability to unlock special doors. You may have seen that in The Matrix or some other movies. Rick Moranis, as the Keymaster, is constantly locked out, right? So he doesn't really become the Keymaster until he gets possessed. Then he's able to open the doors up and stuff, which is really interesting to me. And as you can see, they always put him wearing blue. The Keymaster wears blue. What color do you suppose the Gatekeeper wears, right? We'll find out here in a minute. All right, so let's go back over to Sigourney Weaver over here. She sits down in her chair, and all these hands start coming up and grabbing her, right? I had to stop, because these hands that reach up, this happens in a lot of different movies, specifically The Labyrinth, right? You remember in The Labyrinth how Sarah is in front of the two different doors and she has to choose which one, and then she falls into this sort of abyss-like tunnel, and there's all these strange disembodied arms and hands and fingers and stuff that are reaching out to try to get her. I obviously, I don't think there's... I mean, it's not obvious. I mean, there could be, I guess, but here, let me get right to the point. I don't believe that these represent actual hands or actual arms, per se, physical ones, or fleshly ones, I should say. I believe it represents plasma. And I also believe that if you go to Mount Meru, like we were talking about, that plasma volcano in the middle of the world, I call it a plasma volcano. If you go into that inner earth entrance, hey, we got Trash Panda Love. What's up, Trash Panda Love? Just getting back to the good vibe tribe. It's good to see you, Trash Panda. But it is, if you go into the inner earth entrances where the electromagnetics is really highly charged, I believe plasma itself starts to kind of come out of the sides of that cave. I call it the Cave of Saviors, whatever you want to call it. Okay. It's an inner earth entrance, and it just probably radiates, right? Now, this is really interesting because I've shared this story before, but there's a story about Zeus. And as you can see, in the background here, right here, she has an actual hand. Okay, like a little statue of a hand right there on her desk. Later on, that hand is not there anymore. Really interesting, right? So we had this scene, boom, and then we had her back in her apartment, and there's a little hand right there. I thought that was an interesting little Easter egg. But anyway, that cave, the entrance into the inner earth, could possibly be so highly charged. Like I said, all of our compasses still point towards it every day, right? And if you keep watch on your compass, you'll notice, it might actually shift a tad every day. But if you were to go down into the Cave of Saviors, down into the inner earth entrance, jump down into Mount Meru, take your leap of faith, okay, because gravity starts acting kind of funny down there, whatever you'd like to call it. Yeah, I think that there's a high charge within the earth, an electromagnetic charge that produces all sorts of forms of plasma and plasmic phenomenon, right? One of those is the little arms or hands that kind of reach out for somebody or whatever, because guess what? They want to ground to you. You're electromagnetic too. So they're like, hey, a friend, they want to reach out and touch you and stuff like that. I think that this is what this represents. You also see that when people walk down like a long hallway or a corridor in movies or theater or whatever, and they have like arms that are holding on to torches and stuff like that, but the arms are actually moving. I'm thinking of the Phantom of the Opera, but that's one of the things that comes to my mind. So, what was I talking about? Oh, that's right. There's a story about Zeus, right? Zeus lived in his own cave called Cycro Cave. I forgot what it's called. Cycro Cave or something like that. And that's where he was born. And that's why I call it the Cave of Saviors, because a lot of saviors or savior-type Christ-like figures, Christ meaning like light or light bearer, light bringer, etc., they were all born in caves, allegedly, or a cave. Maybe there was just one, and there's one main cave, one main entrance that goes into our world, and we would consider it to be a cave, right? Anyhow, there's these mortals that go down into the cave to try to collect the sacred honey from the sacred bees, okay? They call these things that they see down in this cave. Remember, those arms represent, those fingers and arms and stuff, they represent plasma because the cave is highly charged, right? So you kind of see these little, stringy plasma things all over the place, just like you see in a plasma ball, but they're coming out from the sides of the cave all the way around. And this is also represented in BFG. If you've seen BFG, where that girl hides inside of that, what's that called? Schnozcumber or cucumber, whatever it is. I don't know. And it looks very similar on the inside of that as well. Anyhow, there are these things called the sacred bees. I'm going to go into more depth on this whenever we talk about it, the ghost world tomorrow. But essentially, sacred bees are electromagnetic phenomenon that's like ball lightning, basically. Okay, so ball lightning doesn't have to be huge and gigantic like the blob. It can be real tiny, and it could look like little pixies just floating around. And if those sacred or holy bees touch you, you'll get stung. Okay, you're not going to get stung by a stinger or anything, but it's electricity. It will zap you, and it'll probably hurt. So guess what these guys did when they went down into Zeus's cave in order to find this sacred honey? Ooh, now we're getting closer to the goo and the ooze and the slime, right? We're going to talk about it. They're looking for the sacred honey that these bees make. Interesting, right? They have to put on full metal armor or a full metal jacket, however you like to see it. They put on head to toe armor made out of metal to protect themselves from bees, right? I mean, we've got beekeepers today. Do you ever see them walking around in full metal gear? Metal Gear? There's another reference. No, you don't, because you don't need metal to stay safe from bees. That's ridiculous. You do need metal and a Faraday cage to stay safe from electricity, though. Interesting. I'm going to come back to the bees and the sacred honey in just a bit. Boom. All right. So here's one of those gargoyles. I took a picture of this because I wanted to point out a couple of different things. There's multiple symbolism that's happening in many of these movies, okay? Sometimes they stack symbolism upon symbolism. This is one of the gargoyles that came to life. It broke free from its rock, okay? So the rocks themselves come alive. They cry out. They bear witness. This is in the Christian Bible. It literally says this, that the time will come towards the ends where the rocks will speak about what has happened here on Earth, okay? It's really interesting. But these guys stop becoming rocks. They become live, monstrous creatures that I call Fantazoids. Fantazoids appear whenever the world goes into that worldwide fog or that worldwide mist. The world depressurizes, the sky bursts open, Fantazoids come down into our world, which you could call otherworldly creatures, heavenly creatures, space animals. I don't care what you call them whatever you want. They're basically monsters to many of us down here. We're unfamiliar with them. They're alien-like creatures, but they're not bipedal, so we don't really call them aliens because we associate that, with looking like we do. When it doesn't look like we do, we just call it a monster. Now, these particular monsters, they look a lot like a particular dinosaur called an Ankylosaur. Used to be one of my favorite dinosaurs when I was a kid. I don't really believe in dinosaurs that much anymore. I believe in Fantazoids. And I think that a lot of people are very mistaken whenever they're trying to put together these weird half-assed stories about what the dinosaurs looked like. And, I love all of the fantasy of it. I love getting lost in the stories of Jurassic Park and stuff like that. But I think the reality is much scarier than a little T-Rex with a big old head. That's not scary to me. I'm sorry. This is scary. This is a hellhound. This would be a classification of Fantazoid or otherworldly monstrous creature, whatever you want to call it, floats down into our world. It doesn't fall because there's zero gravity during the neutral point, right? The world's opened up, zero gravity. Things can just float down to the surface, okay? Just like you could probably just jump and go be gone. Keep in mind there's wind and other stuff too, though. So these creatures come down, and if you notice, he's surrounded by mist. He's surrounded by fog. On top of that, he's got horns and stuff, which the gods are said to have had, right? Especially as they got older over time. But most importantly, his eyes are completely red. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, whatever. But its eyes are red, which means it's plasma possessed. That's what I call it. It has an influx of this red plasma that is above, which is essentially evil. You could call it evil. Okay, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't think it's evil. I think it just has a certain purpose. But that purpose contradicts our purpose, which is to survive and live happily ever after. The red plasma is here to take things away, to kill things, to eradicate things, to purify, to, what's that word? Sanitize the world, essentially. And if you look it up, they're just now figuring out that plasma has huge sanitation properties, right? Basically kills all kinds of viruses and germs and whatever. I don't even know what a germ is, but you know what I mean? It kills bad things or whatever. So this is a Fantazoid. Boom. Okay, so he's like, okay, who brought the dog? It's a dog. He calls it a dog because it's a hellhound. This is a classification of Fantazoid. These are the hunters. These are the predators. These are those types of weird monster creatures you see nowadays on like more recent horror movies or suspense movies or whatever, where they kind of look like they walk around on their arms and legs. I believe that these are a type and a class of creature that will hurt, okay? Will hunt. They're hunters, okay? And I call them the hellhounds, okay? I think that they're a real classification of Fantazoid that has survived the test of time, and we refer to them all the time. So he says, who brought the dog? A lot of people are going to see these particular creatures, and they're not going to know what it is, so they just call it the closest thing that they know of. A dog. It looks like a dog. It's a hell dog. It's an evil dog. It's a whatever, you know what I mean? And people do that with the gods and all these other beings that come down as well. Oh, they look like fish. Oh, they look like reptiles. Oh, they look like reptilians and all this other stuff, right? All right. There it is. There's little Poochie sitting in the hallway there. I can't remember why I took that picture, so let's move on. Cypher No One is in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, Kali, the destroyer, is red, and Krishna, the creator, is blue, and they represent plasma. Boom. Yes, home run. Good job. Right on point. I totally agree with you. Okay. Kali is the destroyer. Kali is red. Krishna is blue. Totally represents the blue beam and the plasma. Man, good call. Good call. All right. So here is the gatekeeper, right? Right here. Not him. Bill Murray's not the gatekeeper. Okay. Although he is a zombie in another movie. But Sigourney Weaver is the gatekeeper. She's now possessed. And she's like, are you the keymaster? Right? They have to get together. That's the concept, okay? These two symbolic characters must unite in holy matrimony, okay? Sacred space meeting together. It's not really... I wouldn't jump to like just saying it's sex, because it doesn't represent sex in the way that we understand sex, like between a male and a female or whatever, right? It represents cosmic sex or cosmic getting together and combining. Okay, I don't know how to describe that, but essentially it's when the sky meets the earth. Okay, when the energies from the sky, the plasma that comes down into our world, meet with the energy from the earth itself. That is the sacred marriage, okay? And all the different religious texts and stuff like that. So she's the gatekeeper. She's the one that keeps the gate or the entrance to the heavens open or closed. The only way she can open that gate is meeting the keymaster, right? She always wears like something along the red spectrum. She's kind of has an orangey sort of red dress on right there. She's like, are you the gatekeeper? And she's like, I am Zool. I am the gatekeeper. Interesting. I forgot to look up the word Zool. So I don't want to speculate on that right now. I'll have to come back to that another time. Boom. Rick Moranis, the gatekeeper. He's not himself. He is plasma possessed. The red eyes totally give it all away. His entire purpose, representing the blue beam, or the earth energy, okay? So this girl right here represents the sky energy or the space energy or the heavens energy, whatever you want to call it, okay? Or hell, depending on how you see it. So she represents what's above. He represents what's below. And he's the gatekeeper. He's wearing blue. He's plasma possessed as well. They are not in control of themselves, okay? Their energy has been taken over. They are now thralls of a greater energy. Now, he starts talking to this animal. Now, people would laugh, right? Because it's kind of funny, right? He starts talking. He's all kind of crazy. And he walks up to a horse and he's like, wait for the sign. And he starts talking to it, right? The human behind him just thinks he's crazy. Just thinks he's nuts, out of his mind. He's talking to an animal. In another era, that would be commonplace. Talking to an animal. How dare a human talk to an animal? We're so far above animals. Plus, they don't speak English or whatever, right? They don't speak human or whatever. And we don't speak animal and barking and all this other stuff. That is a non-issue whenever the world is electromagnetically charged with energy and telepathy becomes second nature. It's easy, right? He's clearly plasma possessed, which means he has an influx of energy. His aura is beaming out on all sides, which means he can interact with the aura of other living creatures like this horse right here. He starts talking to the horse, as seems natural to him because it's another living creature, right? He says, wait for the sign. Wow. The guy who represents the blue beam or the light of the world tells the horse, wait for the sign. He is the sign. Okay, the blue beam is the sign. He says, then all prisoners will be released. Is there more? Yes. Then all prisoners will be released. So obviously this horse is a prisoner. Obviously this horse is a slave, okay? Maybe it accepts it. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. Whatever. I haven't talked to this horse. But clearly this horse is not free to roam about, okay? It's all kinds of locked up and restrained and stuff like that and forced to do slave labor, essentially. Whatever. You know, that's the world we live in. I get it. I understand. I don't support it. You know, I would not do this to a horse. But I get it. I understand. That's the world we live in today. But he says all prisoners will be released. He's talking to the horse. The horse is a prisoner. Everything is true so far, right? It's just so ridiculous because we're not used to it, right? Then he runs off and he starts talking to all the humans that are watching him act all crazy to the horse. And look at the horse looking back at him too, like, man, thanks, bro. He says, you will perish in flame, you and all your kind. He's talking to the humans. You will perish in flame. How interesting. The flame of the heavens, the fire of God, however you want to see it. This is a theme that runs throughout not just Maya plasma apocalypse theories and stuff like that, which are not mine. I don't like it when I accidentally say that. But it's easier to say that sometimes. But this is all throughout history, all throughout religion. The fires of the heavens will come down. It's not talking about regular old lightning and some lightning storm. It's talking about coming down from space, or what we call space, right? Also, this is really interesting that the horse happens to be white. Okay, a lot of those creatures that come down into our world, I believe, happen to be a sort of off-white, shimmery color as well. Now, we've got Winston, who's driving around in the Ectomobile, Ecto-1, whatever it's called, with Ray, right? Now, keep in mind, Ray is very childlike, okay? But he's also very smart. He's very intelligent. He's not stupid just because he's childlike. He's holding up schematics for that building that we were talking about earlier. Remember that? Pikachu is a plasma rat. Cypher no one says in the chat. That's funny. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over this particular scene. We'll take a break. We'll come back, and then we'll start the campfire, and we'll check out the rest of the movies. All right, so Ray's holding on to the actual architectural drawing of this building that we were looking at earlier, right? He says this roof cap right here is made of a magnesium tungsten alloy. Now, to the regular viewer, that means nothing, right? So the regular viewer's like, oh, whatever, he's just really smart, and it's totally unrelated, and whatever, it's just made of something special. He's looking into it too much, which is what I've been accused of a lot. You're overthinking it. You're looking into things too much, etc. Which, hey, that's possible sometimes. We should be balanced, right? But isn't that interesting? It's made of a magnesium tungsten alloy. Well, guess what that means to people like me? That means it's highly, what do you call it? It attracts electricity. I forgot what that's called. Okay, but forgive me. It attracts electricity. Exactly like the obelisks that we were talking about earlier. This entire building is made to attract electricity. And then Winston changes the subject. He's not into the schematics of the building at all. He's more of a religious dude. So he's like, hey, do you remember something in the Bible about the last days? So now Winston's putting together some of his own dots, right? Each one of these guys has their own perspective, and they're slowly coming together. They're putting all the pieces together from their different experiences, their different areas of expertise in life, and they're all coming to similar conclusions as they watch the signs and wonders and omens of the world going on around them, saying, hey, what is this? Something's going on. So Winston's like, remember in the Bible it says something about the last days? When the dead would rise from the grave. Ghost world. Zombie apocalypse, right? That's what he's talking about. So Ray totally remembers. He was raised religiously. And he says, and I looked as he opened the sixth seal. 6, the number 6, is a spiral, just like 9. 9 and 6 essentially are the exact same, okay? Slight differences, but they're spirals, okay? And they represent that spiral of plasma that opens up when our world depressurizes, and that spiraling plasma comes down into our world. I looked as he opened the 6th seal. He's quoting the Bible. And behold, there was a great earthquake. Now, when they say a great earthquake, they're not talking about like a really big one in a certain part of the world. No. They're talking about a worldwide earthquake, a great earthquake, okay? Or an earthquake that no one would forget, an earthquake that surpasses all other earthquakes. And the sun became black as sackcloth. We've talked about that a couple of times, right? The sun and the moon being the two witnesses of God. And the moon became as blood. He finishes the sentence for him, right? And the seas boiled and the skies fell. Wow. Right there in the movie Ghostbusters, the seas boil. How does the sea boil? How's the ocean boil? Like, most people would be like, oh, that's so impossible. No, that happens. During certain events from time to time in our world, the seas boil, or at least they appear to. I don't know if they're hot, and that's why they're boiling. I think that's what a lot of people think about. So they're trying to think about, well, what kind of heat could boil the seas? Well, the sunlight could boil the seas if it gets super hot. That's an easy one. Depressurization, rapid depressurization could also cause the waters to bubble up. Not that they would get hot, but they would bubble up, right? And there's also gases and stuff that are released from within the earth whenever you have this great earthquake, and it goes up through the waters. The seas boil. So some of you might check that out sometime. And the skies fell. Of course, yes, the sky falls. I mean, like, I'm not even going to get too much into that, but there's so much sky falling symbolism everywhere that there's something to that. So I would highly recommend checking out some of my other Plasma Apocalypse videos for more on the subject of the sky falling. Then he says Judgment Day. Judgment Day, right? Why is it Judgment Day? Because whatever comes down into our world, that those energetic or highly charged energetic beings and Fantazoids and things like that, their spirits are on overdrive, I believe, based on my research thus far. Ours are very weak. Now, some of us have a bit stronger of a spirit or electromagnetic point of focus, whatever you want to call it, spirit, whatever, right? But imagine if you were in the heavens, up in the skies where people live to be immortal and live forever, etc. These beings may have the capability or possess the capability to read your aura, to just size you up in an instant, just reading your energy, good energy or bad energy. It's pretty easy when I could just see the color wrapping around somebody, right? Every ancient religion has its own myth, he says, about the end of the world. But then Winston's like, whoa, myth? What do you mean myth, right? You're saying that like it's dismissive. And this would be me in the movie right now. Myth? Pfft. Don't just throw around the word myth as if it's just makes something a story and utter nonsense and not true at all, right? So I like that he pointed that out. Okay, cool. So now this is where the dickless dude comes in, represents like the very modern world with his suit and his tie and his haircut and whatever. He also has red hair, which is really interesting too. And then you got the cop coming in, the slave job guy, the construction worker, and they want to shut off the containment system, the closed system. Hey, Bobby Jensen, just joined the Good Vibe Tribe. Hey, that's a good time to take a break. Let's go ahead and flood the chat with some positive emojis. Let's take a quick break. I'll go ahead and run a little ad from my book since somebody brought it up. Give you guys some time to grab a drink, go to the bathroom or whatnot. Then we'll come back and we'll start the campfire. So if members want to call in, all you got to do is go to the community tab on my YouTube channel. Click on that, and I just posted the phone number for you. Only members can see it. I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your support. I'm glad you guys are members of the Good Vibe Tribe. And let's take a break. We'll be back and we'll finish up and get into Ghostbusters Part 2. All right, we'll see you guys in a bit.
Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye, and waters shall great wonders do. How strange, and yet it shall come true. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk, and in the air men shall be seen in white and black and even green. For in those wondrous far-off days the women shall adopt a craze to dress like men in trousers wear, and to cut off their locks of hair. They'll ride astride with brazen brow as witches do. On broomsticks now there'll be a sign for all to see. Be sure that it will certain be. Then love shall die and marriage cease, and nations wane and babes decrease, as wives shall fondle cats and dogs, and men live much the same as hogs. Pictures alive with movements free, boats like fishes beneath the sea. When men like birds shall scour the sky, then half the world deep drenched in blood shall die. Then half the world deep drenched in blood shall die. For those who live this century through, in fear and trembling this shall do. Flee to the mountains and the dens, to bog and forest and wild fens. For storm will rage and oceans roar, when Gabriel stands on sea and shore. And as he blows his wondrous horn, old worlds die and new be born. Fiery dragon will cross the sky 6 times before this earth shall die. Mankind will tremble and frightened be, for the 6 heralds in this prophecy. For 7 days and 7 nights, man will watch this awesome sight. The tides will rise beyond their ken to bite away the shores, and then the mountains will begin to roar, and earthquakes split the plain to shore, and flooding waters rushing in will flood the lands with such a din that mankind cowers in muddy fen and snarls about his fellow men. And when the dragon's tail is gone, man forgets and smiles and carries on to apply himself. Too late, for mankind has earned deserved fate. His masked smile, his false grandeur will serve the gods their anger stir, and they will send the dragon back to light the sky. His tail will crack upon the earth and rend the earth, and man shall flee king, lord, and serf. And men will die of thirst before the oceans rise to mount the shore, and lands will crack and rend anew. You think it's strange, it will come true. And in some far off distant land, some men, oh such a tiny band, will have to leave their solid mount and span the earth, those few to count. And those surviving this will then begin the human race again. But not on land already there, but on ocean beds stark, dry, and bare. Not every soul on earth will die as the dragon's tail goes sweeping by. Not every land on earth will sink, but these will wallow in stench and stink of rotting bodies of beast and man, of vegetation crisped on land. And those that live will ever fear the dragon's tail for many years. But time erases memory. You think it's strange, but it will be. And before the race is built anew, a silver serpent comes to view, and spew out men of like unknown to mingle with the earth, now grown cold from its heat. And these men can enlighten the minds of future man, to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with the second sight, a natural thing, so that they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew.
Boom! What do you think of that? Isn't that sweet? Somebody in the chat was, I think it was Charlie. Yeah, it was Charlie saying that, man, this is creepy. Like, this gives me the heebie-jeebies. And see, that's one of the things. We are taught in modern society that it's not okay to be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. Don't be scared, this and that. Being afraid of something is a natural flag, a natural indicator that there's something that we're missing, something to look into. Because oftentimes I found when we're afraid of something, it's because we're missing information. Okay, or we have misinformation. Either way. So I'm glad that it stirs up some feelings in some of you guys out there, because as well it should, right? Hopefully that's a conduit to a better version of you or life, whatever. I don't know. So I'm glad. Thank you for sharing. All right, so let's jump back into this. If you're just joining us, I'm JayDreamerZ. We're breaking down Ghostbusters. We're talking about how it relates to the plasma apocalypse, and the reset, the Armageddon, whatever you want to call it, the end of the world as we know it, not the total end of the world. Now, these guys in the movie, they've come in, they want to shut the Ghostbusters down, okay? They want to turn off the containment unit. Our world is a containment unit. We are confined here. We are contained within this world. It is a cold, dark place within this world. Thankfully, we've got a little point of focus called the sun that warms it up occasionally. But there's a lot of ice and stuff going on. Now, our world is a closed system, okay? It means we can't leave, okay? It means that's why our atmosphere doesn't just get sucked out into space constantly. It's closed. It's a closed system. Occasionally, that system, as it builds pressure and stuff over time, boom, explodes, opens up. There's a neutral point that happens during a polarity shift, and life, the ghosts, the aurora borealis, whatever you want to refer to these things as, the energy of our world, lots of stuff gets sucked out, and it opens up and makes way for new things and new life and new elements and stuff like that to come into our world to start anew, just like it says in the video. All right, so these guys want to shut off the containment unit, right? Now imagine that containment unit represents our world, where the ghosts are trapped, right? Or where we are trapped, essentially. Now he says, either you shut that off, or we're going to shut it off for you, right? And Egon gets super beast mode right here. He's like, this is a high voltage laser containment system. Simply turning it off would be like dropping a bomb in the city. So imagine he's talking about our world, and you turn off the electromagnetics. Or we go through a neutral point during a pole shift, right? That's just like turning it off. That would be like dropping a bomb in the city, okay? Imagine, the whole world is depressurized rapidly all at once. You would hear our world ringing. It would make a sound. It would ring like a bell, I believe, but on a huge macrocosmic scale. So it wouldn't sound like a little tiny bell that we have down here. It'd be a huge bell. And then it would also like create wind, like super fast wind speeds that knock things down, etc. It's basically all of the chaos that I've been describing. He says he wants to shut down the protection grid, Peter. So Peter comes in, right? Peter's like, officer, I'm totally here to support whatever you have, blah, blah, blah. Now they shut it down, and look what happens. The atmosphere in this particular area turns red. The room, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, this is all symbolic of our world. The sky, the atmosphere, this room, turns red because they shut down the containment field or barrier or whatever. I keep hitting this mic. I put this mic. I wish you guys could see it. It's got like this arm deal to it, so I have to be very careful. But I wanted you to be able to hear me better too, right? Because before I was way back here, and this is how I sounded, and I realized when I was watching my videos that I can't really hear myself. I have to turn the volume all the way up just to hear me. So hopefully it's a little better for all of you. So we've got the red lights. Boom. The world shuts down. The electromagnetic shield, dome, whatever that wraps around our world, whatever you like to call it, the magnetosphere, etc., for the academics out there, it shuts down and the sky turns red. Interesting, right? It says the rumbling gets louder. This is our world. This is what you can expect to happen. And then, boom! The roof blows off, basically, of their little lighthouse thing. And it's got like this red plasma fire stuff that's coming from it. Shoots up into the sky, right? Now, this is when the ghost world happens. The ghost apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely a zombie apocalypse. A real one. Not just people who have very low spirit energy or whatever, and you just call them zombies or whatever. I mean dead people who died and come back to life. Real zombies, okay? Now, in addition to the dead coming back to life, that's corporal, okay? When you put energy back into a body, it gets reincarnated. It goes back into the flesh. That's literally what that means. Spirit, energy, whatever you want to call it, goes back into the flesh and animates that body. It's just like putting a person into a car, right? You're putting life into the car. That life can now drive the car around and move the vessel around. No different during the zombie apocalypse. However, what if there is no vessel nearby? Then you just have outside plasma. Plasma that's not inside of a body, but it is called ecto, which means out of. Ectoplasm. It's plasma, spirit, whatever you want to call it, outside of a body. And it's an influx all over the place because this containment system came down, and now this plasma is all over the place. And they show it to you in the movie, right? I mean, look at it. What would you describe that as if I didn't tell you that, hey, that's plasma or whatever, right? And I'm not saying I'm right. Obviously in the movie, those are just ghosts or whatever. But what would you think other cultures would call this? Maybe sacred bees or pixies or fairies or angels or whatever, right? People have all these different descriptions of them. Now, this is really interesting. So some of this plasma goes into this car right here. And I'm assuming the car was empty before, okay? But after the plasma goes into the car, just like I gave you that car reference a minute ago, it has life now. It can now make its own decisions, and it can function according, within certain parameters. It can move about. I actually did a movie breakdown of this Stephen King movie. What was that Stephen King movie where the cars all come to life and start killing people? I forgot the name of it. Oh, Maximum Overdrive, right? Same concept, okay? The plasma comes down. This is Skynet. This is whatever you want to call it. And it animates the inanimate. It gives life to that didn't have life on its own before. Interesting. All right. And that's also represented by, like, this dude represents actual zombies, but he also represents the card just coming to life on its own. All right, so here's some more pictures of the plasma. I want to take a few of these for you because I believe they're just beautifully done. I like that they incorporate this particular color. I believe this is pretty true to form of what that plasma may look like when it enters into our world. Obviously, it's not just going to be one color. There's all kinds of exceptions, but for the most part, I say it's along the red spectrum. And that's because, according to my research, it's possibly hydrogen ionized hydrogen, essentially, or hydrogen plasma, right? So this plasma is shooting around all over the place. They're showing it to you. They're giving you a little glimpse, a little breadcrumb of, hey, this is real. But they do it in a fanciful way where people are just amused or entertained. They're not thinking about it. They're not taking it in. If you're a movie buff and a movie lover like I am, you build a collection of information of things that you can't deny the synchronicity between them in the movies or in books or whatever it may be, right? For you, it might be books or TV or commercials or whatever it may be, right? It's all the same. So they end up in jail. They go to jail because they're crazy lunatics. So they have them committed and locked away. They're put into jail and some stuff like that. Actually, I think in part 2, they actually go to an insane asylum. Right now, they're just in this sort of old prison. Now, he's talking about, Ray can't stop talking about the structure of that building. He says, cold riveted girders with cores of pure selenium? Right? Everyone, all the other inmates are like, what? So Peter's like, is everybody getting this so far? Right? Because Peter's not getting it. And he makes it very clear. I like how Peter is very in your face. Like, bro, you need to stop speaking nerd and just tell me what you mean. Right? I appreciate that. So he's like, so what? So what? Look at Ray's face. Ray's like, I'm not even playing right now. And he says, I guess they just don't make them like they used to, huh? That's Peter saying that. He's talking about the building. That's just a nonsense reply. I guess they don't make them like they used to. Now think about this. Speaking of architecture, hey, we just got another member of the Good Vibe Tribe joined up. And it's Sheepdog22. Welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. Let me put some emojis in the chat for you. Welcome to the chat, Sheepdog. All right, so, and thank you for supporting my work. Check this out. So Peter is as the non-believer, as the doubter of the group, okay? He says, I guess they just don't make them like they used to. He's talking about ancient architecture versus modern architecture, right? He just chalks it up to, well, I guess it's just different. That's all. He's not pondering into why it's different or what makes it different or why the differences were there in the first place, right? Ray is, though. Ray's trying to tell him about it. So he says no, right? I guess they just don't make them like they used to, huh? No. Nobody ever made them like this, Peter. He gets very serious. He puts him right into check. He says, I mean, the architect of this building was either a certified genius or an authentic wacko, right? This is very important to him. He's looking at the architecture. He's saying, hey, man, this is so different. This serves a purpose. That's what he's saying. This building serves a purpose. It was designed for a purpose. This structure was built in this particular way to serve a particular purpose. So Peter's like, just pretend I don't know anything about metallurgy, engineering, physics, and just tell me what the heck's going on, right? Okay, I respect that. So does Ray. Ray's like, you never studied. Like, his mind is blown, but hey, he understands. So he explains it to them. He says the whole building is a huge superconductive antenna. The whole building is a huge superconductive antenna. Like I said, designed to draw in the plasma that happens and comes into our world so that they can have free energy to use it for a very long time. That plasma, I believe, we'll get into this, maybe tomorrow, but they store it underground in capacitors. So Ray continues on. He says that was designed and built expressly for the purpose of pulling in and concentrating. Now he uses the word spiritual turbulence. I'll say electromagnetic energy. Same thing. Okay. So let's go back to Dana Barrett's apartment. She is the gatekeeper. She's just chilling up in her house that's half blown apart, waiting for the keymaster to show up, right? And she says, no. Actually, this is the other guy. He comes in. He's talking to her, and he says, I am the keymaster. And she says, I am the gatekeeper. Oh, this is the holy matrimony. And I mean the holiest of matrimony, okay? Between the female energy from above, or however you would like to see it. Doesn't matter. One's female, one's male, okay? It's really weird because I believe the female energy is actually coming in from above and the male energy comes in from below. I'm not sure. You could probably reverse those. But this guy's the keymaster. He's in blue. He comes up and he's like, I am the keymaster. Okay, well, we skipped ahead to a totally different scene here. So I want to talk about this, okay? This is the mayor. So the mayor is constantly helping out the Ghostbusters. Now, my question for all of you, I'm not just going to jump out and tell you my idea. I want you to tell me, who do you think the Ghostbusters represent? Now, also, I would like to go ahead and start the campfire. So if you're a member of my channel and you want to call in and you have like a ghost story or something to share or some thoughts on the Ghostbusters or whatnot, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the phone lines so that we can take some calls too. I don't know if we'll get any, but if we do, I'll totally answer them. All right, let me go ahead and turn this on real quick. Boom. All right, cool. So the phone's on. This is one of the first times I've ever done it. We had a practice run. It worked okay, so we'll see what happens. All right, so we're going to move on. Now, we're talking about the mayor. The mayor's in here. He says, what am I going to do here, John? Now, I want to point something out here. Do you see down here? Instead of a nameplate, it says, be not afraid. Isn't that interesting? They don't explain that in the movie. This is the mayor. He doesn't even believe in ghosts. He's not a big ghost kind of guy. He's not a paranormal guy. He's very much concerned about what the voters all think and stuff. But right there on his desk, it says, be not afraid. Isn't that interesting? Be not afraid. Fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? It's a concept that undulates throughout many, many movies that I've seen. Don't be afraid, right? Fear is an energy vibration that is not seen as being welcome in the world to come, essentially. That's a short version of it. All right, so we're in the mayor's office. Now we've got this map with these circles around it, really interesting. And this guy says the walls in the 53rd precinct were bleeding. Well, time out. Let's get back to the goo. Let's get back to the slime, right? So some people were asking the question, and I want to talk about it right now. What is the slime? What is this goo? Whenever these ghosts and this paranormal activity is happening, oftentimes it leaves behind some sort of a viscous, slippery, slimy kind of substance, right? Now, remember I told you the story about those guys who ventured into Zeus's cave and they were looking for the sacred honey that the sacred bees were all leaving behind? The sacred bees are electromagnetic energy in the form of plasma balls, right? And wherever they are, they know that they're going to find this sort of slime or honey, right? And it's a byproduct of plasma. If you have enough of it, it actually leaves behind sort of a watery kind of wet trail. And people can say that they got slimed if that plasma ball goes right through you. Now, I want to tell you also something. Some people don't study plasma or plasma physics. Not all plasma is like the kind that if you touch it, it'll kill you, right? Obviously, you can touch a little plasma ball. You're not going to get like shocked or anything like that. And there's a barrier between that. But there's something called cold plasma, which we'll talk about more probably tomorrow. Cold plasma you can touch. Cold plasma you can walk in, be around. It won't burn you or anything. There's actually super cold plasmas that can freeze things. Interesting. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow too. Dennis L is in the chat. Hey, Dennis. And it says, JayDreamerZ, Egon is noge backwards. Noge means legs in Russian. Oh, that's interesting. Noge or nog. I don't know how to say that. Thank you for sharing that, Dennis. All right, so the walls were bleeding. What if it's not blood? What if it's not blood that is dripping down off of these walls? The walls are carrying an electric current through them, right? So imagine you have enough electromagnetic charge, you've got plasma running through everything, and then the walls start producing this byproduct that's very wet and viscous. Viscous is like viscosity, like slippery essentially. It's goo. It's the ooze, and the ooze has a secret. I'm talking about the Ninja Turtles now, but it's the secret of the ooze. That's literally what it is. And it, when it's introduced into our world, things get bigger and mutate and all stuff. All right. Let's see here. All right, so I'm jumping back into this. So that is what this ooze is. Now, I believe I'm actually going to start getting into some more of the slime and the ooze and stuff. We're coming up on that. We're going to get back into it some more. We're going to touch on it throughout the video. Now, they're talking to the mayor, and he's like, why should I care? Why should I care about all these ghosts escaping or whatever? And they're saying, this is an apocalyptic event. This isn't located just to New York City. This is worldwide. And this is something I wanted to stress to all the religious people in the world, or even those religious people who are not religious and they're doubters, kind of like Peter is. Peter Venkman. It's Dr. Venkman. I love that part. They hate it when I do this. Ting, ding, 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 ding. He starts playing the highest keys on the piano. Cracks me up. But anyways, they're like fire and brimstone and coming down from the skies. Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Now, if you don't know what brimstone is, essentially, right? You may have seen the movie Shrek, and he's like, Shrek, did you fart? He's like, no, it's brimstone, or whatever. Brimstone smells kind of like rotten eggs, okay? It smells kind of gross. Now, I don't want to really scroll all the way back to my picture of Slimer, but I want to talk about Slimer just for a quick second. I don't want the mayor's face on there while I talk about Slimer. Hold on. Boom. All right, so I want to talk about Slimer just for a second, okay? Not only does Slimer represent ball lightning, and he is the blob of electromagnetic energy that floats about from place to place, etc., right? But his original name was not Slimer in the movie, okay? They had no name for him, so they called him Onion Head. The reason they called him Onion Head is because wherever he was, he gave a real foul, strong kind of an odor, and they called him Onion Head. Right? If you have ever worked with electricity, or you know an electrician, ask them what electricity smells like, right? So oftentimes people will describe electricity as smelling like burnt metal, burnt plastic, and a slight sweet smell as well, kind of like an onion, right? So that was Slimer's original name, was Onion Head. And that's really interesting to me because these are the smells of brimstone that you smell whenever you're getting into the places that are more holy sites or come down from holy places or whatever. It leaves a kind of a funky odor behind. So they're like fire and brimstone coming down from the skies and rivers and seas boiling. That's the second time they said that in this movie. Interesting. Now we go back. Let me just double check the chat. Oh yeah, I want to say welcome to Tawab, Lavav, Yahawada, Yasharala. Oh, sorry. I don't have the time to practice that, but hey, welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. And also is in the chat, says 2 questions, but off topic. Kind of. Can I call in? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and call in. Why not? Nobody else is calling in right now, so go for it. Totally can call in. Anybody that wants to, if you have the number and you remember, go ahead and call in. And we want to try to keep the phone calls to, maximum 5 minutes or so or whatnot. So we stay on topic. Now, this building right here, I'll just tell you right now, represents Mount Meru. Remember, that's what I call the plasma volcano in the middle of the world. As you can see, there's a storm above it with an eye of the storm in the middle, and plasma, aka lightning, in one of its plasmic forms, shoots down from the middle of that hole. That's where the North Pole would be. That's where the North Star would be, right there. And that's where that opening blows up out of our world and blows the roof off of our world, essentially depressurizing the world and creating a worldwide tempest. And then, of course, there's a great earthquake. There's flashings and lightnings. This is described in many different religions, okay? Many people are mostly familiar with Christianity here in the United States or whatnot, but this is described throughout all religions that I've ever studied that have some sort of an apocalyptic end game. There's another Easter egg for you. All right, so the earth opens up, stuff starts to fall into it. Then we've got your classic spiral staircase scene. And they're going up all this huge spiral staircase. You'll see this a lot of times in the movies. This is letting you know the sky has now opened up, and the spiral staircase essentially represents the conduit between worlds, okay? I call them plasma conduits, but if you were to open up the sky and look beyond, I believe that there is a plasma conduit or hallway or tunnel or whatever you want to call it that connects our world to other worlds, specifically and especially the world across from ours, which is the moon, or what I call our sister world, okay? For more information on that, you're going to have to check out my Plasma Apocalypse videos, please. All right, so they're going up the spiral staircase. It's classic. You'll see that all the time. That's also another hint that the movies are showing you. You're about to see like some end of the world type stuff take place. Now, this is the top of the building, and the whole sky is red, right? They're trying to traverse going up to the place of the gods through the plasma conduit. They're going to the top of this building up here where you can see the lightning and everything and the red sky. And the lightning hits the building just like Ray said, right? The building was designed to draw in spiritual turbulence or electromagnetic energy. To pull it in, it wants to be hit by this lightning from the sky or thunderbolt from the gods, right? And as you can see too, they're really hard to see here. Can I don't know. Anyways, there's the gatekeeper and the keymaster are right there on both sides. Hey, we're getting a call. All right, sweet. Let me go ahead and answer the call. One moment. Let's see here. All right. Don't hang up. All right, here we go. Answering the call. Booyah. Hey, what's up? This is JayDreamerZ. You are live on the air welcome to the campfire. Who is this?
Yeah, what's up, Jay? This is Tawab.
How do you say your name?
Tawab Lavav.
Oh, Tawab.
Yahweh Yashra Allah.
Okay, is that Hebrew?
Yeah, it's Hebrew. It means blessed mind from Judah of Israel.
Nice,
Yeah.
right on. That's cool. Well, hey, it's nice to meet you. You said you had a couple of questions that might be a little off topic. No worries. What's your question?
All right. So, first question I have for you, Bub, is EMF protection. I'm getting a lot of little ads on my phone saying to get electromagnetic field protection. Now, I've done like aura readings, and I have a really, wide range of aura. It says I'm like 80% full, orange, good vibes. So I don't really think, I should be blocking my EMF radius, or I guess electromagnetic fields, because
Right.
maybe I'm affecting more than being affected. So I was wondering maybe what's your opinion on that?
Good question. I actually think about that a lot myself, because I tend to have these moments where I can sense all the different stuff that's in the atmosphere around me, or even just in my city. You know what I mean? Have you ever just felt 5G, or just felt Wi-Fi, or just felt radio waves or things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a delivery driver doing Amazon delivery, so I'm all about, but definitely in more places, there's an anxiety, pressure that comes compared to others. It seems like when I'm out and about more in the rural areas, the country life, I feel more at ease, more relaxed compared to cities
Right.
and very congested areas. So, I understand there's a energy that is kind of a force upon us, but I'm not sure, compared to the EMF affecting me, I'm like, I realize I have a strong aura. I have a strong spirit in myself, and I notice from those around me, a lot of others are more influenced more than I am influenced by, people that's carrying weight or
Right.
depression or drought. So I don't want to end up getting this to protect myself in like some sort of fear or anxiety.
Right. Which it can cause.
Right, which, I realize is an aspect that I have to deal with, but, it seems I give more peace and comfort to others, and I don't want to block that out. So what do you think, Jay? Do you think that's a good way to invest myself in, just in that protection, that EMF, or just kind of let the vibes flow and
good question.
Stick to the piece that I found.
Right. So I'll tell you what I do, right? It's hard for me to speak for you because a lot of us have different circumstances happening, with our geography and where we live. Hey, welcome Ron G too. Ron G just joined the Good Vibe Tribe. Welcome. But I would say it's good to go and ground yourself every once in a while. It's good to go and reset so that all of that energy that's bombarding you all the time, especially if you're not well versed in like how to deflect it or how to amplify your own energy, to use and piggyback those other energies, because you can do that too. You can use those energies to sort of be like Neo in the Matrix. You know how like what's his name? The dude's trying to like get in him and he's trying to infect him or whatever, and Neo just says, "Hey, I'll use you since your Agent Smith is everywhere. You're connected to all this, and I'm Neo, so I'll just reverse all this, and I'll use that to my benefit." I do that quite often. I think a lot of others have learned how to tap into that as well. Ultimately, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling negative, if you're feeling like the vibrations around you are getting to you, I think it's a great idea to ground yourself every once in a while, block yourself out from those energies, unplug stuff. If you have electronics or anything that's plugged in, get away, go to the country or whatever. Take a break so that you can sort of build that inner energy that you have so that you can go back into those things, recognize them, and then you'll start learning how to be able to use them or to block them out completely. And that will turn in, as it has for me, to lifestyle changes, essentially. So I'm for it. I think that it's a good idea. I've also talked about and touched on like the tinfoil hat and Faraday cages and things of that nature, which can help you to block out all of those EMF waves, and it can also possibly, be structures that are more safe, I should say, during this plasma apocalypse that happens. So that have you ever seen my videos about Faraday cages and time machines and stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm up with you. I actually just subscribed today, but I've been following your videos for a while, so
right
I'm up to date with it. Yeah, I'm up to date with it, and I honestly think you're a great source for many people to understand from. So, I'm more than support you. I'm definitely a big fan. Now, for my second question, it kind of leads into what we speak about. With the protecting, releasing and protecting on what terms feels best for you. I know it's kind of past the 5 minutes. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're totally good.
But see, I'm a biracial male, and I find a lot of, I guess I would say controversy between the fact of melanin and non-melanated. Now, I've done my research.
I've been there.
I'm mixed. I have a light melanin shade, and when I look it up, it says melanin helps protect against, UV rays, which is...
Yes.
I looked up plasma. It happens to be, UV rays included with light rays. So what would your outlook be on melanin versus non-melanin? And I don't ask you to get too detailed. It can get very touchy.
Right. It's just, it gets into people start getting into, ethnic pride and racism and stuff like that. So I hear where you're coming from. I'm cool to talk about it. I'm just going to touch on it just for a bit, and then we'll get back to this video and the topic and stuff. But essentially, like I talk about, hey, Angel Lovebud just gave $2 in the super chat. Thanks, Angel. But essentially, I talk about how there's these beings that come down from above who tend to be more white in nature. Not Caucasian, but white, right? And then we've got native stories from tribes around the earth of people who have been here for a very long time, and they're native to the world, and they tend to be darker skinned, and they have more of the melanin in their skin, and they're protected from the sunlight, etc. So it seems to me like there's definitely a correlation between, I hate to say white devils, but that's also kind of like what they can be perceived as because they have horns and all this stuff, right? Those beings that come down from above, or Fantazoids or whatever, and they mate with the locals or the natives of our world or other worlds. And then there's also the inner earth too, to think about. I'm going to leave it on that just for a moment. I think that there is a great deal of a great wealth of information and value that people can have in researching their actual origins of why am I this color? Why does my hair grow this way? Why do I look this way? I support that. I think it's great. And I think it actually gives people value, not to see the differences and say, oh, you know, like, and it turns into racism, like, oh, I'm different or I'm better or I'm different and I'm not as good as you are or whatever. But recognizing those differences that we have and being proud that we understand why they are different. You know what I mean? And we can take those differences and put them together to build a tribe and to build a family so that it's beyond, you know, just color and physical. And it's so base when it gets down that road, but it is a subject that I do like to check out myself. It's a good idea for a video in the future. So thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, for the reference, you know, I'm all supporting on bringing the world together. I think we're all one race. We just happen to have different characteristics. And, you know, I'm a living example. We can bring them both together, and I support that. So I just, I find it very interesting, you know, and I want to be able to connect this to both sides of my family, my father and my mother.
Yes,
so,
excellent.
You know,
and it's all about love. In the end, that's what we're actually. Ghostbusters is all about love. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Tawab, is nice to meet you. Thank you so much for calling in. I enjoyed our chat together, and maybe we'll talk again another time.
Definitely, Jay. Yeah, awesome. Have a good night. All right.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, cool. So that was awesome. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put out the campfire for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the video for a bit. That was awesome. I think I like that. I think I like taking calls. So don't let me forget. I want to bring this movie back to the core concept of love, okay? And I should be able to do that because we're going to go through these pictures here, and it's actually a huge part of the movie, you know? As much action as there is in Ghostbusters with lightning and monsters and this and that, there's actually a huge love piece of it as well. It's the core to all of it, just like in Moana or any of these other movies, right? So these people get hit by lightning, and boom! Oh, it doesn't show it, shoot. But they actually turn into rock. They turn back into the gargoyles that they were beforehand, right? And that's the plasma that comes down from the sky. You can see the obelisks there in the background as well. Did you guys like that? Did you guys like hearing somebody call in and stuff? I had fun. I hope you guys liked it. Okay, so they meet Gozer, okay? Gozer is the destructor. Gozer represents the plasma apocalypse, okay? Gozer, for all intents and purposes, is Cthulhu. Gozer is Kronos. Gozer is whatever world eaters there are in pop culture, okay? That is Gozer, which is the plasma apocalypse, the world tempest, the whole experience itself. And that's why Gozer's shooting out all this plasma down at the guys down there, right? Also, you can see what Gozer's wearing, right? Gozer's dressed up, like I say, those beings that are from above. See, not only does this represent an event, but it combines and stacks symbolism of the Fantazoids who come down from above. She or he or whatever it is, right? I don't know if it has a sex or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to teach you some more about Gozer. Okay, Gozer's not a human, not a person. This isn't even really what Gozer looks like. But look at what Gozer's wearing, right? It's that shiny, shimmery, white, opalescent, pearlescent color like we were just talking about from those beings who come down from above. This is what they look like. This is why they get burned by our sun so easily, etc., right? All right, we'll get back to that another time. So we've got Gozer in the middle, the two witnesses to the left and right. We've got plasma shooting all over the place. We've got obelisks that are there to draw the lightning down. We've got some sort of a square building or cubicle looking building there, and then a pyramid behind it as well. I don't really want to break down all that symbolism right now, but obviously that's a lot of esoteric symbolism, that one shot. Now, Gozer says, choose and perish. And they're like, choose? What do you mean choose, right? Gozer says, choose the form of the destructor. Excuse me. Oh man, I can't do a Gozer voice again. That hurt. All right. So Gozer says mankind needs to put a form to what I call the plasma apocalypse. Hey, Tawab, you just called in, just donated $5 and left a little tip in the super chat. Thanks, Tawab. I had a great time chatting with you. That was fun. I hope other people that call in are as cool as you are, because that was pretty awesome. All right, so here's one of the keys, right? We choose the form that this takes. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that it's not going to be a tempest. It's not going to be a storm. It's not going to be depressurization, right? It does not mean that there's going to be a giant marshmallow man and whatever it is. It means that mankind interprets these apocalyptic events and we put a form on it for future reference. When we tell the story, we'll tell the story of Kronos, who sucked up all of his own children into the sky, into his Kronos mouth, and then spat some of them back out, and there was rocks that fell down. Or the form of the destructor could be Shiva, like somebody else in the chat had mentioned, or the form of the destructor. You see what I mean? We choose the form. Just like the nothing, right? Just like not just the destructor, but the savior as well. Okay, so they don't really talk about the savior portion of it. I'm going to, okay? We choose the form of the destructor. We also choose the form of the savior. The destructor is the red plasma beams that come down from above, generally speaking. The savior is the blue beam that shoots up from Mount Meru, from the plasma volcano, that signals that the apocalypse is over. Rather Be Outside just donated $5 and says, thanks, Jay. Love the live shows and the chats. Hey, sweet. I'm having a good time too. So this is pretty cool. All right, so we choose that form. Remember how in the Neverending Story, the only way to get rid of the nothing was to name that little girl that lived in the tower. What was she called? The childlike empress, right? Childlike. Only a child could name that savior, that beam, because that all represents the blue beam and stuff like that. But they had to give it a name, right? They had to remember what it was. They had to name it. Right now, it's unnamed. It's the thing you don't talk about. Try talking about the end of the world to regular people, right? They're like, oh, doom and gloom. I don't want to hear that. Take your negativity away. Excusez-moi. It's not negative whatsoever. It's honest, right? It's honesty. We're being honest. We're talking about things that have actually happened and been recorded and documented throughout all religions and across all of time, all across the world. We need to give it a name again. That's why I have named what I call it, the plasma apocalypse. It needs to be named so that people can talk about it, so that they can bring it back to the forefront of their minds. All right, I think I've gone off on that subject enough. Now, Ray, they're like, don't think of anything. And Ray's like, I'm gonna try to think of the most sweetest, innocent, childlike thing I possibly could that could never harm anybody. It's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Now, here's an interesting thing, right? Although Ray is trying, and he comes up with something that's seemingly innocent, what he does is he conjures up a titan, okay? Or a giant, whatever you want to call that. For me, that's sort of titanic in nature. But he's also that same kind of white, okay? The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is a sailor, okay? And these beings that come down from space, they're nautical in nature. What does that mean? It means that they're used to, like, navigating, just like you see on Star Trek, how they use a lot of sailing terminology. These beings also do that. So they dress up the giant white titan-looking guy in a sailor's outfit. Oh, wow. Pat donated $10 through the super chat. Hey, thanks, Pat. I see you still have that same picture. I like it. Classic. Got the sunglasses on. I always imagine you're playing poker or something. Thanks a lot, Pat. I appreciate you. Okay, so Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, he represents the titans that enter into our world or come about as a result and a byproduct of the plasma apocalypse, okay? Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, there he is. He's snarling and stuff. That's why he's white. That's why they chose these people. That's why Gozer is wearing that certain color of dress or whatnot. So this guy goes up to Mount Meru or Mount Olympus or whatever you want to call it. Okay. It's the same mountain across all religions and cultures. Okay. Yes, they do have local geographic areas that are named after an ancient site, like the Fountain of Youth or whatever you want to call it. But he goes there and he's warring against the littler gods, the superheroes, which are playing the part of the Ghostbusters, right? So we've got the clash of the Titans, essentially, the gods versus the Titans. And Egon says we could reverse the particle flow. He's talking about how they can beat Gozer, right? Gozer is the plasma apocalypse. Egon says to reverse the particle flow. So we have a flow of energy in our world right now, and it reverses from time to time. And once it's done reversing, Gozer goes away. The plasma apocalypse is over. The electromagnetics of our world have gone through a complete flip and a reversal. That's what he's talking about. We could reverse the particle flow through the gate. We'll cross the streams. Crossing the streams, okay? Now, in one way, he's saying it's bad. Yes, it's bad because whenever the streams cross, and crossing the streams also represents cosmic union. I'll call it that because it sounds more politically correct and less base than sex, okay? Cosmic union between the earth energy and the sky energy, the mother goddess, the male god, whatever you want to call it, okay? Crossing the streams is that act between the energy of the earth, the blue beam shooting up, and the energy mixing of the red plasma that's coming down. Those are the streams that are crossing. That also is a signal when you see both of them that it's coming to an end. Gozer's going to die. Kronos is going away. Cthulhu's going back to sleep. Shiva's also going back to sleep. Whatever you want to call it, right? All right, so Peter says, you said crossing the streams was bad. Which, on one hand, it is, because it's a part of the end of the world as we know it. But on the other hand, if you cross the two, that means it's a signal that they're coexisting, which means that you're at the end of the plasma apocalypse, okay? It's all about to be done. The neutral point is over. The polarity shift is almost done. The streams are being crossed, right? It's the cosmic union. So they're like, all right, let's do it. Let's cross the streams. Boom. And then all this white stuff, white goo, whatever you want to call it, falls down. It's all marshmallow stuff, right? Now, symbolically, it's not marshmallow stuff. Everything is being covered with the milk of space. There's a lot of milk symbolism when it comes to space, beings from space. I have a whole video called Is Space White? I think space is white. I don't think it's black. And I provide a lot of really good reasoning and rationale for that in that video. So please check that out. All right. So then we've got Peter Venkman who's looking for his girlfriend, and she has turned into a dog statue, essentially. Well, she breaks out of that. That has a lot to do with the symbolism of mudfossils and things being instantly petrified. Okay, this is also Medusa up here. Where'd she go? I gotta show you. So this is Medusa, okay? So Gozer, all this stuff. This is Medusa, who has the snakes coming off of her head, or the hole in the sky, or whatever. It's just the plasma entering into our world. And those snakes, or those sky serpents, or fire dragons, or whatever you want to call them, have the ability to petrify things, turning them into rock, which has so many different extensions to it. So many implications. All right, but let's continue on the path here. Stay on the Ghostbusters trail. All right, so they save the day. Boom, they're covered in all of this stuff. And Egon is talking to the keymaster over here, Rick Moranis, and he says, you've been a participant in the biggest interdimensional cross rip since the Tunguska blast of 1909. I think it was technically 1908. That's okay. We won't fault Ray for that. But whatever, he's right, okay? The Tunguska blast, if you look it up, okay, there's a lot of little great breadcrumbs in this movie that give you insight into all this stuff that's happening in real time, in our real world. The Tunguska blast up in Siberia is an anomalous occurrence that people can't figure out what happened. This whole area of trees is just obliterated, blown down to the ground. They try to say that it was a comet, but then they're like, obviously, if it was a comet or an asteroid, it would just leave a crater, etc. Go check it out. It's a very interesting study, and I believe that it's electromagnetic in nature. So he tells him check this out, right? I'm going to make a connection. He tells him, you just participated in the greatest cross-rip interdimensional plasma apocalypse, okay? The sky ripping open, worlds colliding, etc., right? Things coming into our world that are alien, things leaving our world, going into other worlds, etc. Cross-rip, whatever you want to call it. And he's like, you just participated in all of that. And the Keymaster, Rick Moranis, says, yeah, it felt great. Just in passing. Like it's a funny comment, right? People are like, oh, look at him. He's obviously like super messed up. You know, he's kind of out of it right now. No, he literally was on cloud 9. I talk about this a lot. There's going to be different chemicals that come into our world, including nitrous oxide and some other things. I believe that the end of the world will actually, for many, be a very pleasant experience because of the chemical nature of what's happening in our world. In short, a lot of people will be high at the end of the world. So, you know, if you want more information on that, go check out my video called a Plasma Apocalypse Chemical Romance, I think it was called, something like that. Now, hey, Pat! Pat just joined up in the Good Vibe Tribe. Welcome, Pat. You get the green fire. How tight is that? That's cool. Ghostbusters Part 2. Welcome, Pat. Thanks for supporting my work. I appreciate you. Ghostbusters Part 2. Let's check out Ghostbusters Part 2. Actually, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Let's do this. This video is kind of taking a while. I'm having a good time, but I want to leave it up to the chat, okay? We can either take a break right now, and then we'll go into Part 2, or we can stop right now, and we can continue Part 2 next week in Truth and Movie Mondays next week. We'll probably talk for another hour, so I want you guys to think about it. Let's take a vote. Just go ahead and if you want to continue on, go ahead and let me know in the chat. Thumbs up, whatever you want. If you want to wait, just say, let's wait. And we'll put it off till next week. That way we can have some more to talk about. I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to cast your vote in the chat. I'm okay. If you want to go on, I could keep on talking. But I feel like not everyone has the stamina that I have right now, you know, and a lot of times when talking about these types of subjects, it's just like having a meal with somebody, okay? And I don't like to overfeed my guests. I don't want you guys to be stuffed. Here at my house, we don't eat until we're full. We just eat until we're satisfied, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead and take a vote. If you would like to continue on, there's already all kinds of thumbs ups in the chat. All right, I got 1 vote for next week. I got 30 votes for continue on, basically. Let's do it. Right on. All right. We'll okay, Ron. All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to continue on then. Well, let's do this. Let's take a break. All right. I'm going to go ahead and roll the little break video again. Go grab some water. Go grab something to drink. Go to the bathroom. We'll come back. And I'll open up the phones again, too. Maybe we'll take another phone call. All right. I'll see you guys in a bit.
Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye, and waters shall great wonders do. How strange, and yet it shall come true. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk, and in the air men shall be seen in white and black and even green. For in those wondrous far-off days the women shall adopt a craze to dress like men in trousers wear, and to cut off their locks of hair. They'll ride astride with brazen brow as witches do. On broomsticks now there'll be a sign for all to see. Be sure that it will certain be. Then love shall die and marriage cease, and nations wane and babes decrease, as wives shall fondle cats and dogs, and men live much the same as hogs. Pictures alive with movements free, boats like fishes beneath the sea. When men like birds shall scour the sky, then half the world deep drenched in blood shall die. Then half the world deep drenched in blood shall die. For those who live this century through, in fear and trembling this shall do. Flee to the mountains and the dens, to bog and forest and wild fens. For storm will rage and oceans roar, when Gabriel stands on sea and shore. And as he blows his wondrous horn, old worlds die and new be born. Fiery dragon will cross the sky 6 times before this earth shall die. Mankind will tremble and frightened be, for the 6 heralds in this prophecy. For 7 days and 7 nights, man will watch this awesome sight. The tides will rise beyond their ken to bite away the shores, and then the mountains will begin to roar, and earthquakes split the plain to shore, and flooding waters rushing in will flood the lands with such a din that mankind cowers in muddy fen and snarls about his fellow men. And when the dragon's tail is gone, man forgets and smiles and carries on to apply himself. Too late, for mankind has earned deserved fate. His masked smile, his false grandeur will serve the gods their anger stir, and they will send the dragon back to light the sky. His tail will crack upon the earth and rend the earth, and man shall flee king, lord, and serf. And men will die of thirst before the oceans rise to mount the shore, and lands will crack and rend anew. You think it strange, it will come true. And in some far off distant land, some men, oh such a tiny band, will have to leave their solid mount and span the earth, those few to count. And those surviving this will then begin the human race again. But not on land already there, but on ocean beds stark, dry, and bare. Not every soul on earth will die as the dragon's tail goes sweeping by. Not every land on earth will sink, but these will wallow in stench and stink of rotting bodies of beast and man, of vegetation crisped on land. And those that live will ever fear the dragon's tail for many years. But time erases memory. You think it's strange, but it will be. And before the race is built anew, a silver serpent comes to view, and spew out men of like unknown to mingle with the earth now grown cold from its heat. And these men can enlighten the minds of future man to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with the second sight, a natural thing, so that they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew.
I love that song. I could listen to that all day. I think it's sweet. It's Mother Shipton. Some people were asking, like, what is that from? That's nothing that I made up or anything. That's actually a prophecy from a witch, if you want to call her that. Sorceress, seer, whatever. Her name's Mother Shipton, and she wrote all of that hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So pretty interesting, right? I just thought I would put some cool visuals to it and read it, in a way, made it sound a little cooler. All right, sweet. So if you're just joining us, I'm JayDreamerZ. We're breaking down the Ghostbusters movie. We're talking about how Ghostbusters is related to the ghost apocalypse or the ghost world of the plasma apocalypse, when our world is I don't want to say suffers, but our world receives an influx of electromagnetic energy or spirit energy, whatever you want to call it, from the heavens above and from within the earth itself. Whenever the barriers go down to our world during a neutral point in a pole shift or a polarity shift, right? All right, cool. So we're going to take some calls here in a bit too. I hope everybody's being cool in the chat. Everybody's got the good vibes. Everybody's getting along, hopefully. If not, I do have people who have made moderators, so I hope everybody's being kind to one another. I'm not really reading the chat, so hope that everybody's being good. All right, sweet. So we're going to jump back into Ghostbusters Part 2, right? The V. You see how they do that? They actually put this on the logo in the movie, and they have the V symbol, okay? V is for Vav. It's also Roman numeral 5, so sometimes 5 is sort of disguised esoterically as the number 6 or a spiral. There's also the upside down V, which is the chevron or the lambda, right? Interesting. Lambda, lambda, lambda. The nerds, all this stuff is very, very much related in the esoteric world. All right, sweet. All right, everybody's good in the chat. What's up to Abraxas, Joshua Matthew, Miss PG, Angel Lovebuds in the chat still. Loon Through the Ether, Lisa Post. I'm just calling out people I see right now. And Eric Reed, etc. Eric, you did not like part 2? Oh my God. I loved part 2. I thought they were both classic. I really like both of them. Not so much the other ones afterwards. I'm going to see the new one, see what it's about, and if it's good and stuff. Yes, this is when the carriage gets stolen. So let's check this out. All right. So we've got Ghostbusters Part 2. Part 1, Plasma Apocalypse came and went. They saved the day. They survived. Everything's good. Ghosts all go back to wherever they're supposed to be in the ghost world or ghost realms or whatever you want to call it. And there's just minimal ghost activity. So the Ghostbusters themselves are kind of out of work. Okay. Everyone loved them. Everyone praised them when it was all happening. And they were all clearly witnesses to the paranormal activity that was happening worldwide. And they're like, yeah, Ghostbusters, boom, like they're right. But then when it was all gone and all of that paranormal activity disappeared, people slowly stopped believing in the Ghostbusters once more and thought that those concepts were once again ridiculous. Does that sound familiar? Sound like maybe ancient myths and legends and lores and old wives' tales and religions and all this stuff? Of course, because it resonates and it follows that story. All right, so I wanted to stop it on this particular image. This is one of the first images in the movie. Do you see that brown bag? It says dog, dog, dog. Okay, it's actually, I mean, it's a real place. There's a store that has like they're agriculturally aware. I don't know what do you want to call it, but this is interesting to me that they purposefully chose to show this, and they show this particular bag in many movies. Allegedly. Okay, I read that on the internet. I don't know if it's true. But to me, it's really interesting because dog means fish. And there's a lot of fish references in this particular part 2. It's referencing and symbolizing and alluding to the fish gods, right? There's actually a god called Dagon, which means of the fish, okay? And like I said, whenever these beings come down into our world, we just call them whatever we're used to seeing here that we're already familiar with in our terrestrial world. Vrai Lumiere, I see you in the chat. What's up, Vrai? All right, so anyways, we got the fish god reference right there. And then the carriage is going to start moving off on its own. I don't really want to get into that right now. That's the V, okay? And that's the split. That's the hook. The V is the hook. I have some theories as to what the hook is. Obviously, some people are probably thinking about Maui in the movie Moana. Prance just regenerated. Join the Good Vibe Tribe. Hey, welcome, Prance. We guys put some awesome emojis in the thing for Prance. I'm gonna put some power your way, Prance. All right, thank you for supporting my work. Let's go on. So the Ghostbusters are out of work. So what do? They go to a kid's birthday party. They're trying to entertain everybody. This is interesting to me, and I'm going to show you guys here in a bit. But they're booing these people. They're like, they lost all faith. They lost all belief in the old ways, which wasn't too long ago. Okay, but the world is now safe. There is no plasma apocalypse. And what this represents in our world is many years having passed and people just forgetting, especially those who were born into those worlds who weren't there. They weren't there firsthand. They didn't experience it. So you have this story and it becomes the telephone game and it's passed down from generation to generation. Some of the original people who did go through it become the forefathers or mothers or whatever of their own tribes, and they make sure to establish certain traditions to keep everybody in their family safe during certain times of year when this is more inclined to happen. However, over time, people just turn those traditions into what we call holidays, and then it's more like a Hallmark holiday or whatever you want to call it. It becomes very much about consumerism and stuff like that. So one kid walks right up to the Ghostbusters and says, "You know, my dad says you guys are full of crap." Wow. Doesn't that just sound like the world today? Right? Like this doesn't even have any kind of logic, no sense, no nothing. It's just, my dad says you're full of crap. So boom, take that, right? Obviously my dad said it, so it's true. Dang, that's so too bad. That's heartbreaking for people like me who I'm a father. And I pass down ancient teachings to my son and to my family, and I let them know if they're interested. I'll share some bedtime stories with them, see what they think about it. All right, we've got, so this kid's name is actually Jason, which is really interesting. So she says, Jason Hush. Well, some people have, and then this is Ray talking. He says some people have trouble believing in the paranormal, right? He's trying to be cool with this kid. He understands. You weren't there. You weren't fighting Gozer a minute ago with Stay Puff on your butt, Slimer going right through you, leaving you all gooey and sticky and all this crazy stuff that happened to us. You weren't there. I get it, kid. You know, you might have trouble believing that. That's okay, you know. Now, they leave this birthday party because all the kids didn't want to see the Ghostbusters. They wanted to see He-Man and stuff like that. But I wanted to pause it on this because Ray has on this little conical hat. This is where the birthday hat comes from, is from the gods, who Ray represents, essentially, or the superheroes, who are said to have had elongated skulls or larger heads, right? This is why we have wizards that have long, pointy caps or hats or whatever. It's called the Phrygian cap, technically, okay? Witches have long, conical, pointy hats. Ancient Egyptian rulers have long hats. Now, originally, they were for beings that had long heads, okay? But when those beings disappeared and left, as they do and tend to do during these events, basically, NASA looking at you, we kept on wearing their dress. We kept dressing like them. So we wear these conical hats. Nobody knows why. Nobody understands why. Nobody has a decent theory from what I've heard. And it makes sense that the simplest explanation is the best one, which is they belong to beings that had bigger heads. And then he says the holidays are coming up, right? That's their best season, is when the holidays come up. When he says holidays, he's talking about the winter solstice, okay? So that's right around the time that I talk about one of these plasma apocalyptic events happens, is during the winter solstice, when ancient people literally thought the sun would disappear, the moon would go dark, etc. They lit all these fires everywhere. Makes sense, right? Now, remember I said that they're performing these other tests? Egon has his own tests. He says, I'm trying to determine whether human emotions actually affect the physical environment. Isn't that interesting? You see, Egon is a wizard, okay? Wizards understand that our emotions, for powerful beings, okay, or power-filled beings, I should say, not powerful, but power-filled, okay? Those of us who have a stronger spirit, and I'm sorry, but I do think that there's people that have weaker spirits and people that have stronger spirits. But for those of us who have a very strong spirit, or collectively, all of our energy and all of our spirit energy together actually changes the weather. Now, it's not easy to prove or anything. I've had many instances where I've been very emotional and the most ridiculous storms roll in, lightning, thunder, and it's just nuts for a moment, right? Some people might say, hey, man, it's coincidence, whatever. Okay, I don't know. But I've had times when I've literally pointed out the window and said, lightning's going to strike right there. And boom, lightning struck right there. It's insane. Some of us, you just know what I'm talking about, okay? It's not something I can just prove it to you in a book or whatever, but I feel it. I connect with that. So I understand I understand where he's going with that. Then you've got Peter Venkman. And Peter Venkman, no longer a Ghostbuster, he has his own little show. And he's interviewing this guy who's talking about the end of the world. He wrote a book on it. Isn't that interesting? This guy has a book about the end of the world, and he's being interviewed by Peter. He says, your new book's called The End of the World. Now, can you tell us when it's going to be? Or do we have to wait till the book comes out, basically, right? I wanted to show you that because that's normal, okay? That's the first question everyone always asks me when they're brand new and they don't watch my channel or anything. And they're like, what? He's talking about the end of the world? When's it going to be? Tell me the exact time, etc. Always. They're always asking for that. And I'm always telling people the same thing. Read the signs. Look at the world around you. You'll know, okay? Now we've got a new bad guy who's coming on scene. His name is Vigo. Is Vigo. I love this. I love it. He has a little thrall, a little slave guy that he possesses from like, I don't know, Romania or something it sounds like maybe. So now I want you to put the Vigo in the arch. Think about this. He's talking about this painting, this bad guy right here. He wants to put them in the arch. Actually, I thought I had a picture. Oh, I do have a picture. It's later on. They'll show you a ghost inside of the Washington Square Arch in New York, okay? Which is a pretty sweet spot. You can get some pretty good chess games going on there if you're ever in that area. Now, Ray starts his own bookstore called Ray's Occult Books. Occult just means hidden. It doesn't mean evil or pagan or bad or whatever. It just means stuff that most people don't know about or look into. That's all. So Ray's got his own bookstore. This is really interesting. Peter meets back up with this girl, and he picks up a snow globe. And he's really putting the snow globe in the shot. Like I talk about, our world, I believe, is probably more of a snow globe type cosmology locally. And the top part represents the dome of the sky. It's very cold on the inside, like I said, very cold and dark and stuff. So this is what the snow globe is perfect for symbolizing, right? And then it's got a little flat bottom and stuff onto it. And that's just a local world, like I said. Now there's this baby that comes into play. This baby wants to be, the bad guy, Vigo, okay? Vigo is short for Victor, okay? Victor means victorious. It means the winner. It means somebody who wins essentially in a war or a fight or a struggle. Okay. This is not a fight. I believe there may be infighting between beings, but I believe the victorious is just another word for survivors. Okay. The people that did not die in the plasma apocalypse, the people who beat Kronos, the people who beat the Titans, they survived. They are the victors. That's why they have Nike as their god and all this other stuff. The swoosh is the hook. Oh, the hook is the sky, by the way. The sky cracks open, and you can still see the light from where it's cracked open. It heals itself, so now we have the Milky Way in the place of where the rip used to be in the sky. But the sky totally heals itself after it cracks open. But when it cracks open, you see a rip across the sky, and it meets the blue beam in the middle, creating a hook, or like a sort of a scythe. Is that what they call it? A scythe? All right. So Oscar, man, I looked up the word Oscar. I'm going to leave that one for you guys because I want to hurry through the second part. I don't want people to get bored or anything like that because we have been talking for a minute, but that's okay. We're going to just keep on trucking. All right, so he says, I think we hit the honeypot. Now, what they're doing is they're using this device right here to measure where there is an influx of electromagnetics in the world. And that's how they track ghosts and stuff like that, right? Because ghosts are, I believe, electromagnetic in nature. And he says, I think we hit the honeypot. Isn't that interesting how they say that? I know it's a general expression, but we were already talking about the sacred bees and the honey that those sacred bees leave behind in the form of this byproduct from plasma, which is a sort of viscous substance or a sticky, maybe not sticky, but a sort of a goo kind of a substance, right? This movie really touches base on that slime, okay? I'm going to show you all about it. We're going to talk all about it. Now, I just wanted to show this picture. This is the museum where much of this movie takes place, and that's where the painting of Vigo is. Vigo lives inside of this painting. The painting has been possessed, essentially. We'll talk about it in a bit. But look at the architecture of this building. We have another one of these old architecture style buildings. They did not have to choose this. You know what I mean? They chose this building and this architecture style for a particular purpose because it flows with the rest of the concept of the movie. If you know what I'm saying, I'm talking about and alluding to the mudflood theory, which we're going to get into probably next week. But essentially, why are there stairs that go all the way up to the entrance, right? There shouldn't be stairs. There should be, boom, ground level, boom, you walk right in, right? But they don't. And they have these pillars that go around the building. These pillars act as natural Faraday cages so that whenever these buildings that are designed to be hit by the plasma from above, when it hits it, all the people who are inside of this building are protected because it goes down through those pillars or columns or whatever and grounds itself into the ground. So all of the inhabitants of the building are nice and safe on the inside. So that's why we have these ancient columns and whatnot. Essentially, the building is a giant Faraday cage. Now, this is Vigo. Now, there are different types of spells. There's different types of magic. There's different types of manipulation of energy or matter, whatever you like to call it or label it as. One of those is drawing, okay? You can put energy into a drawing and you can charge things with energy, okay? Could be a painting, could be a rock, could be a crystal, could be whatever. Allegedly, the ancient Atlanteans knew this and they literally had meetings occasionally. I don't remember if it was every day or what, but the Atlanteans met up in mass, in groups, to focus on an object, typically like a giant crystal in the city or whatever, and they would literally like send energy into it and charge it with whatever energy they were sending into it. Same concept with the drawing. Now, the eyes turn red. He's plasma possessed. Okay, so this is that red plasma we were talking about. Electricity shoots down from the eye in the painting, which is symbolic of the eye in the sky, or the all-seeing eye, or the hole that opens up in our atmosphere when the world depressurizes. And this lightning kind of shoots down and hits this dude, and he becomes possessed. He's not himself anymore. He becomes murderous, essentially. He's still a weird, kind of a nice guy in a weird way, but he's a total murderer, okay? He's trying to kill babies and weird stuff like that, okay? So this guy's plasma possessed. He becomes the thrall of Vigo, who's in the picture. And then they show you this image of this sort of a hall that's full of this slime, this pink slime, right? And we were kind of alluding to this earlier when we were talking about that story of Zeus in the Cycros cave, where he was born, and these people that went in to try to collect the honey from the sacred bees. That's what they were looking at, I believe, okay? That's just an artist's rendition. It's our imagination, but it reflects a truth, a core truth. He says, I, Vigo, the scourge of Carpathia. I can't do that. That's hurting my throat. Oh, I can't do that. Hold on. Hold on, I gotta take a sip of water. I can't do the Vigo voice, man. That hurts my throat. Okay, so Vigo starts talking about who he is, okay? So this is what the ancient gods did whenever they talked to their subjects. They started off by letting you know exactly who they were, and by comparison, who you are, okay? So this godlike dude in the painting is saying who he is, where he's from, and what he's done. He's listing his accomplishments, just like the God of the Bible in the Old Testament, right before he gives the 10 Commandments. So then, boom, he gets electrocuted. This guy becomes plasma possessed. He becomes a slave and basically has no control over himself and cannot remember anything that he does while he's plasma possessed. Also a key too. So the guys, they find this honeypot of where all of this slime or ooze is, and it's underground, right? Inside of the earth, just like we talked about and speculated on. There's this area called the pneumatic transit, okay? If you look this up, this is actually a real thing. And like we were talking about how Ray was saying that they don't make buildings like this anymore, right? That there's this old world type of architecture, old world type of technology that we seem to have forgotten about or lost somewhere along the way. This pneumatic subway is one of those. This was built in 1870. And pneumatic means it runs off of gas or pressure, essentially, which is really interesting. It was abandoned. They started to build it. They built it and everything, but then for some reason, it just, boom, it got abandoned. Okay, so it's a real thing. It's a real place, okay? I don't know if that's the actual one or not, but I find it interesting that the people in the movie wrote this into the script, that there's this ancient world technology. They go down in there and they find all of this goo or ooze or slime or whatever, right? And if you look at it, the slime can move. It's sentient. It reaches out and it tries to grab onto like his legs, just like I said it would. If you go down into the Cave of Saviors or Mount Meru or the Plasma Volcano or whatever, and you get into these electrically charged or electromagnetically charged areas, it's very well maybe that you'll see some of this goo, slime, sacred honey, whatever you want to call it, and the corresponding plasma tentacles or balls or whatever that are also going to be in the area. And they are sentient. They move about. They want to connect. They want to touch. They want to be a part of things. They want to be incorporated. And incorporated means to go into a body, right? All right. So, boom, you could barely see it, but this is New York City. They have a blackout. Right after this happens, these guys hit some main wire or whatever down there. And this is another symbol. These are the signs that we look for. All of the lights turning off. This is an electromagnetic pulse. And New York represents the entire world in this particular shot because it's worldwide. Because it's an apocalyptic event. It's not just the end of New York City or whatever, right? And the EMP goes off, the electromagnetic pulse. Whenever our world hits the neutral point and its polarity shift, it creates an electromagnetic pulse. All the energy in our world essentially turns off for a moment. Magnets fall from your fridge. There's no electricity anywhere. the whole world goes dark. No electricity, no lights, no sun, no stars, no nothing, okay? Just candles, natural fires, glow sticks. Totally a good idea. All right, so then this guy who just got possessed is walking down this red hallway, and all of a sudden his eyes start to shine. He's that plasma possessed. He has so much electromagnetic energy, spirit, whatever you want to call it. The eyes are the window to the soul, which is light, which is energy. And if you have enough of it, that light starts to shine out of the eyes. And this is not something that I'm making up. It's not something I'm just saying based on the movie or fanciful thinking. This is actual history. They say in, the Book of Enoch describes the birth of Noah, who survived the great flood. And it says that when he was born, not only did he look a lot like the watchers from above, the angelic white beings that came down or whatever, but his eyes shot out light. He was a light being, right? Anyways, I find that to be very interesting. Here's another shot of the buildings with the columns, giant Faraday cages to keep everybody inside nice and safe. And this is also an old school courthouse as well, right? So we go to the courthouse. The Ghostbusters are on trial. Nobody believes them. Once again, everyone thinks they're a bunch of charlatans, etc. Not everybody, but the system, okay? As expressed by the judge in this case, okay? The judge represents modern academics, the modern system that we have in this world. It's not trying to hear about the past. It's only concentrating on the right here, right now. I understand, whatever. But they have some of this goo in this bottle, and it starts to react to the judge whenever he gets very emotional, right? So the judge starts screaming at them and yelling at them, "I'm not finished, blah, blah, blah." And so you could tell he's just going nuts right there, right? His energy is affecting this stuff that's in the jar, right? Just like in Monsters, Inc. If you've ever seen Monsters, Inc., right? They use the fear and the extreme emotional experience that the children were having, knowing that it can power things and manipulate the atmosphere, the world around you, etc., right? So they use that in Monsters, Inc. Now this guy says, "I'll have you burned at the stake," right? He just goes super old school evil on them, which is not even surprising for me because I'm kind of going through some court stuff right now. And I can vouch for the fact that sometimes stuff like this is actually alluded to, said, you know what I mean? Especially if you have some sort of paranormal belief or religious belief or strange belief or whatever, the system does not want to hear that. So whatever. He says, "I'll have you burnt at the stake." All his anger comes out, right? Now, this is also the amplification of energy in our world. If you look around, people are saying, when's the world going to end? What are the signs? What should I look for? Start looking for people losing their minds. First and foremost, start looking for people, including yourself. Please do a self-diagnostic because it's hardest for us to see this within ourselves, okay? When people start losing control and they start getting murderous and violent and they start rationalizing it and making excuse for it and it becomes normal to hear about it and see it all over the place, that's the amplification of energy in our world. Just like a light bulb, right before it pops and goes out, it gets its brightest and it burns its hottest. All right, so then that causes these two guys to pop up out of there. These guys are called what were they called? Scarelli brothers or something? Essentially, that name translates into student, okay? So it's no surprise to me that there were these students who were trying to learn, and the judge had them executed, essentially. So, I mean, you could put that together if you want to. Okay, so now here's another fish reference, right? Peter Venkman's got this guy wrapped up. He's lassoing him with the plasma, and he says, "Come on, you fish eater. Let's go. Yeah, Tubby." He calls him a fish eater. Isn't that weird? That's just, I mean, I don't really call people that when I'm upset or, I'm playing sports or whatever. That's not a name you hear people call too much. Fish eater. Interesting, right? Another fish reference in this movie. Oh, here's where they show the pole inside the fire station, right? Which is pretty cool. So he's coming down the pole. I ain't afraid of no ghost or whatever. That pole represents the blue beam. Now check this out. Remember how I said that at first Slimer was actually called Onion Head? So this is backed up in this scene whenever Lewis, who's played by Rick Moranis, Lewis comes in and he says, "Boy, it smells like somebody took a big," and then he sees Slimer right there, right? Slimer's over there eating up all the food or whatever. Now, if you imagine, and I think that probably I'm speculating here, I mean, it's all speculation, but I would imagine if Slimer is an influx of energy, if he is literally ball lightning that's just moving about, and there's a bunch of garbage left over in our world, including like rotting food and bodies and animals and all kinds of stuff, those things release gases into the air. And then these ball lightning and stuff like that might actually hover towards these gases that are released by food and stuff that's decomposing. And that's why you might actually see them appear to be over the food, eating it or whatever, possibly. Okay. It's just another theory that I have. But the reality is they make a big deal to say that Slimer smells. And this is one of the only times I actually saw this. I used to watch the Ghostbusters cartoon all of the time, and I don't remember them saying that Slimer stinks or smells or anything, but they make a point of that because he does give off an odor. Electromagnetics, right? Brimstone. So now they start experimenting with the slime and they start yelling at it and they start doing these things. This slime has amazing properties that whenever it interacts with humans can amplify their energy. Okay? So this is a huge tool that can be used. It's no surprise that people went on treks and holy missions and stuff to go find some of this sacred bee honey or whatever. Be Fine! Just join the Good Vibe Tribe. Hey, welcome, Be Fine. Let me hook you up with some positive emojis in the chat. Welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. Booyah. All right, cool. So they start experimenting with the slime itself, right? And he says, whatever this stuff is, it responds to human emotional states. That means it's synergetic, okay? It works with us, okay? I mean, if you work with it, it works with you, essentially. So what they do is they test it out and they put it into an inanimate object, a toaster. Bill Murray was also in another movie that featured a toaster, where he got hit in the face with one. Can anybody tell me what movie that was? That's a little trivia. I thought there was some trivia in there at you. Anyway, toasters also very interesting to me too, because they have the brave little toaster that comes alive and stuff. Inanimate objects introduced to an influx of something that's highly charged energy, and guess what happens to it? It starts dancing. It starts moving about and having a personality seemingly, right? And they're all loving it. They're dancing with it. They're like, oh, little toaster buddy or whatever. That is what I'm talking about when I say that these inanimate objects come to life, okay? Now, if this toaster was negatively charged, because remember, it amplifies whatever the energy is. So they put positively charged slime, okay, which is a byproduct of plasma or an influx of plasma. They put that in the toaster. It was positively charged. So the toaster in turn acts positive. It dances and it's very friendly and stuff. If they put negatively charged goo into that toaster, the toaster most likely would be trying to like burn them and stuff because it's negatively charged. I mean, you would see that, you know, you do see examples of that in different movies and stuff too. So then we go to that museum, okay? And that's where Dana, that lady from the last movie, she's the one that has the kid, Oscar, who's trying to get kidnapped by the Vigo painting or whatever. And this is restoration. Isn't that interesting that they have her working in something that's restorative? They're restoring ancient relics, restoring ancient buildings, restoring ancient paintings and stuff. They have to restore this stuff. Why? Because they can't do it anymore, right? They restore it because it's not something people can do nowadays. That's why it's so valuable, because it comes from a time whenever we were better versions of ourselves, basically. And so we have to try to restore or add to, essentially, the things that we already have, including ancient architecture and stuff. All right, so let me jump back into the chat. We got Irregular Absolution says, JayDreamerZ, Groundhog Day. It was not Groundhog Day. Scrooged. Somebody got it. It was Scrooged, actually. Good guess. That was Disintegral. Totally got it right. It was Scrooged. She says there's like this fairy lady. I should break that one down. Maybe I'll do that for Christmas. But there's this fairy lady. She's like, oh, look, it's a toaster. And she like whacks him with it super hard. Yes. So it was Scrooged. All right. So we go back to this painting that is energetically charged with super negative energy. Zooms in on the eyes. The eyes represent the eyes of God, the watchers, etc. And if you notice, whenever they're just hanging out, taking pictures of it and stuff, Ray over here is transfixed. Its energy from the painting is literally reaching out to the deepest, most negative parts that exist within Ray. And he's starting to lose himself in it, basically. And I see this in the world that we live in today. People watch television. They have that exact same look when they watch TV, okay? Commercials, whatever. Nobody's going like, when they're watching TV. I don't see that. I see people that look just like Ray does right here. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Remember, if you want to get my attention in the chat, you do have to type in @JayDreamerZ. That way it'll highlight it on my side and I could read your comment. All right, so here's another shot of the building with the little sort of horseshoe magnet entrance. Wanted to get that out there. And then they go underground. Oh, okay. Here's a better picture. So they go underground and you can see that there's all these heads on these spikes and stuff like that whenever they're underground. Oh, that's right. I took a picture because this one looks like Eminem. I'm sorry. So I don't actually have anything like educational about that. I thought this was hilarious because it looks like Eminem's head on a stick. All right. So pass that one up. All right. So then what happens is Winston is on the train tracks and a ghost train runs him over or runs through him, right? Goes right through him. And he basically gets slimed by this ghost train. Now, I've told this to many of you in the past that whenever we see, hey, Irregular Absolution just left a $5 tip in the chat. Thank you so much, Irregular Absolution. And he put a little sticker in there. He says, keep it up. You guys are the best, man. I really like you guys. Thank you. You guys are very supportive. I really love it. Thank you. All right, so whenever you see these trains, especially if it's some sort of ethereal train, a ghost train, a train that has a ghost on it, etc., it comes in different forms. It's all symbolic, but I believe that it represents those plasma conduits that take you from one world to another, okay? This is just one of the ways that they show it to you. So now they're covered in this slime. Now remember, the slime that they were just in was not positively charged. This is the slime that is generated because of all the negative energy that lies underneath New York City. They make sure to point that out. So when they're covered in this slime, their energy is amplified. It's energetic amplification of your energy or our energy, whatever we already have or whatever you're feeling at the time or whatever. Boom, it turns you into a psycho, like that song, The Doors. I quote that one a lot when he says, there's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad, right? That's plasma possession. And it turns people murderous, essentially, if that's what it's inclined to. If it's inclined towards the negative, it turns people into murderers. If it's inclined towards the positive, it turns people into superheroes and saviors and heroes and stuff like that. So he says, stupid, you better watch your mouth or I'll punch your lights out. And they start fighting with each other because they're covered in this energetically charged byproduct from the plasma itself, right? And he says it's like pure concentrated evil. I'm just going to let you guys think about that one. All right, pure concentrated evil. So the mayor's sidekick basically has them committed. This is the real world now. Welcome to the real world. This does not happen in Ghostbusters. This happens in real life, okay? Real scientists, real explorers, real creative minds are out there in touch with things that other people are not, and they get locked up. There are thousands, I'm sure, upon thousands of individuals out there that we are unaware of. And my energy goes out to all of you right now. If this has ever happened, or if there's just people out there, I want to send out some strong vibes for you to hold on. Just hold on. Get through it, okay? I'm sorry. There's casualties in this game of good and evil, okay? But whenever you start telling people the truth, or you start recommending that there is alternative or more truth to be known, or more to the story, this is what happens a lot of times. They'll lock people up, throw them away, put them in a straitjacket, right? And he says, you know the expression, it all comes back? Well, it's going to come back. This is the plasma apocalypse that we're talking about. Ray is saying it's going to come back. You still need us. You should probably listen to what we have to say so you can all prepare for it. So then we skip over to Vigo. He's Vigo. I can't do that guy's voice. My brother does it way better. He's Vigo. Why am I drippings with goo? Or something like that he says at the end. So Vigo, boom, we go back to the possessed picture. He says the season of evil begins with the birth of a new year. The season of evil begins with the birth of a new year. Now, what he's referring to as evil depends on your perspective, okay? Yes, there's going to be monsters, creatures that come in, alien, godlike beings, titans, giants, dangerous creatures and plants, okay? Dangerous atmosphere, not everywhere, okay? These are just pockets here and there. The world will be majorly different. This guy is saying this is going to be his world, okay? And he is evil. And therefore, it's the season of evil for him because he wants to be the ruler during that time, okay? All these people's memories are wiped. All these people wake up in a post-apocalyptic world, and people like this guy want to come in and be gods. So, that's what I think about that guy. Let's see what else we got. Oh, as you can see, this is where this is the same dude. This is this nanny. Okay, you may have seen the nanny that flies through the air and does the Stretch Armstrong and grabs the baby or whatever. That's actually a dude. Okay, so you've got like some symbolism going on between the confusion of sexes and stuff. Also, one of the signs and omens that you should look for to know that the world is getting close to that turning point, okay? The world energetically is thrown into confusion or chaos, just like the energy of our world. The energy of our world goes into that neutral point and it goes into flux. Flux means it's everywhere. It's branching out. It's got no one side and the other side. It's just all sides. It's everywhere. And if you look at sexuality in our world, I believe that trend follows with the world coming to an end and being reborn again. I'm not saying it's evil. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying anybody's being judged for their sexual preferences or whatever it is. I'm saying it's natural that this is happening. And instead of judging people for it, we should consider why. Why is this happening? Right? Where is it coming from? It's coming from something greater than ourselves. It's coming from something greater than individuals. It's coming from our world that we live in. We are reciprocating the energy of the world that we have. So anyways, this dude is dressed up like a chick, and he comes in and he basically snatches the baby up, takes him over to Vigo. The walls start to bleed. Here you can see the walls bleeding. It's not blood. It's plasma, or plasma residue, I should say, right? It's energetically charged physical leftovers of a byproduct of electromagnetic influx. Okay, I'm trying really hard to use layman's terms, but sometimes it's hard. So then we've got the blood coming up and the blood oozing. So whenever you watch stuff like, what was that Jack Nicholson movie? The Shining, right? Where the walls bleed or whatever. It might not be blood. You might see some liquidy red stuff. And like I said, we associate it with whatever we're familiar with. Boom. People say the walls are bleeding. Here it is. So this is in Washington Square Park in Manhattan, in the city. And you can see there's this ghost who looks like he's kind of just trapped within this arch that happens to look just like a horseshoe magnet. And if it was highly charged, it would be a horseshoe magnet. It's made out of conductive stone, usually like limestone and stuff like that. That's why the rock giant loves limestone, by the way. Then you've got these ghosts coming in. Now, this is the ghost apocalypse. This is the ghost world. They're showing it to you, okay? Whenever all that energy comes into our world, this is a cartoonified version of things that people would see, and they interpret them as they see fit based on their experience and their lives and stuff like that. Irregular Absolutions in the chat and says, JayDreamerZ, it happened in ancient Greece before it fell. I totally tend to agree with that. I think that the plasma apocalypse has occurred at many different stages in our history, which accounts for dark ages and times of missing, we don't have information and stuff like that. And it also accounts for buildings just being completely demolished and ruined and civilizations disappearing and nobody knows where they went to or whatever. This accounts for those things. So you've got the sky opening up, the plasma coming out. It actually starts to get dark there. And he says, and then there was an eclipse. So this guy's telling them, because they missed it all, he's saying there was an eclipse. It's not an eclipse. It's the sun turning off, essentially, and the world going dark. The whole town went dark, and everybody's nuts. Oh, you mean plasma possessed? You mean like energetically amplified? Yes, that's what he's talking about, okay? People's energy gets super amplified during this time. which is why there tends to be a lot of chaos towards the end and wars and stuff like that. So this is the proton packs shooting at, this is a very terrible picture of it. Let me see if I have a different one. Nah, we'll see another picture later. But essentially this weird goo looking stuff that they're shooting at, that pink slime, it goes over that museum, okay, which is kind of what our world sort of is. But it goes over that museum and it creates this sort of dome-like shell. And their proton packs, their plasma beams, cannot penetrate it. Okay? That would be because it's physical. Okay? It works on ghosts because ghosts are not physical. Allegedly. But this is a physical barrier, just like the sky around our world may be a physical barrier, which is keeping us from seeing the glory of the heavens and the real light in space. And that plasma that's around our world can't pass through that barrier either, because plasma is physical, it can't go through a physical object. So for example, that's why in the Old Testament, and many other books, throughout history, when they're describing the plasma apocalypse in their own unique flavor, they say you should probably go into your houses and shut your doors and your windows. Of course, right? Plasma can't come in. It's not going to come in and get through the door unless you invite it in, unless you open it up. Then the plasma can come inside and dock with you or whatever. All right. Joshua Matthews says, look up the Great Year Plato. The Great Year Plato. I need a little more info than that. I'm going to look it up. The Great Year. All right. I'll try to remember that whenever I read the chat later on. Thank you. All right, so then we've got Egon, and he says, it would take a tremendous amount of positive energy to crack that shell. Interesting. We're talking about the negative energy versus the positive energy. The shell that he's cracking is essentially the sky, the dome of our world. Let's see what else we have here. So they're talking, they all look at the Statue of Liberty, right? Now, he says it would take a tremendous amount of positive energy to crack that shell, which was that pink dome that went around that museum, right? A tremendous amount of positive energy. And then, boom, we have this. I'm not thinking of a statue, okay? Yes, a statue can be charged and stuff like that, but what does this statue represent? This woman, Lady Liberty, with the light beams shooting from her corona, her head, whatever you want to call it, and then she's holding the eternal flame. Which you want to keep that eternal flame lit. You don't want to see that eternal flame go out, because when the eternal flame goes out, that's whenever the world starts to get bad again. Okay? Statue of Liberty represents the plasma volcano, Mount Meru, which shoots out that blue beam that's full of positively charged energy, which fills our world and heals people and has a lot of really awesome effects. Interesting that they do that. So once again, we've got the red versus the blue. Symbolism here. So they go inside of the Statue of Liberty, also Titan symbolism. Not all the Titans were evil. Not all the Titans were bad. Not all the giants were bad just because they're giants or whatever. Right? There was good ones too. They go in and they charge up this statue. Just like I said, you can charge objects. They're charging the statue with positive energy. They slime it, essentially. They slime the statue. It gets everywhere. They cover it and they're rocking out, dude. And you know what they're rocking out to? Good vibes, okay? That's how they're going to save the world. That's how they're going to save themselves. That's how they're going to help everybody out, okay? They're going to rock out the good vibes. They're like trying to get everybody to chant and sing, and they're like, come on, New York. Come on, you got to repent, essentially, okay? Sorry to use a religious word, but that's exactly what it is. You got to change your ways. Snap out of it. Stop being so negative. Stop being in your funk. Stop hating on everybody. Change it up. Let's smile. Let's welcome people. Let's dance. Let's celebrate. Let's have some good vibes. And that is how they actually save the world this time, is through the good vibes. You'll see that in a bit. So the Statue of Liberty is just chilling, walking around. Then you see Slimer makes an appearance. Onion Head makes an appearance. He's driving this bus. Okay, is there really a ghost physically driving a bus? Probably not. I wouldn't imagine that they would do that. But is there energy in the bus that allows it to come to life and turn on and work? Yes, absolutely. And I like the Slimer's green too, because for me, green represents like heart energy. And I've never seen Slimer depicted as an evil being, ever. Okay? For me, Slimer's basically a good guy. He's a good ghost. He's funny. I like him. All right, so now here's that picture I was telling you about. This would be our world, okay, on a smaller scale with the plasma wrapped all the way around it. And then we've got the good energy, which is going to break a hole open into that, basically. She's going to use her light, smash open the middle of the world, which has a hole at the top, or an opening at the top. She smashes it open. That would be the, what do you call it? Not candelabra. Dang, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little tired now. So I'm going to speed through it a little bit. We're almost done. I'm not going to take any more calls or anything because I am getting a little bit tired. But we'll do that another time. I love doing that. But what is that called? Oh, the chandelier. That's what it was. Okay, the chandelier. Candelabra, same thing. The chandelier. This is the same imagery of the sky, the dome breaking up. Doctor Who fans out there, you might notice, that there's corresponding imagery between this shot right here and the new preview for the new Doctor Who season, where the Doctor Who as a woman or female energy breaks the ceiling open, essentially, right? And boom, there you go. You can see the Statue of Liberty. I know that there's people out there who have different ideas. Some people might think the Statue of Liberty is just a pagan idol and it's evil and this and that. There's a lot behind this stuff, man. There's a lot behind it and to it. But it also represents the Titan imagery, just like Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. All right, so Ray lets us know, hey, this slime is positively charged. So we're working with positive and negative, not good and bad per se, but positive vibrations, negative vibrations. We're talking about the energy spectrum. Now, remember this guy who was, he was the slave to Vigo, right? They slimed him with all the positive energy in the world and he passes out. Okay, this is a part of the plasma apocalypse as well. A lot of people pass out, okay? They wake up, they don't remember anything, and they feel great. Just like the last guy, remember? He was covered in like marshmallow or whatever it was, and he's like, yeah, it felt great. This guy also is going to wake up feeling great, like $1 million, just like it says right there. And he says, go ahead and knock up some willing hellhound. That is another reference to the hellhounds that I was talking to in the first movie, right? He's weakening. The singing is neutralizing the slime. Okay. That's not a very good picture because it just shows the baby all blurry. Oh, yeah. That's him watching infomercials or whatever. All right. So let me get back. So they're talking about the singing. It is not the Ghostbusters that saved the world in this one. The Ghostbusters are a part of it. They're helping out, but they're more guides. When they were in the Statue of Liberty, they're trying to get everyone in a good mood and stuff. Ray, at the last minute, he's got some skeletons in his closet, and Vigo's trying to tap into that. So they kind of merge. He says, no, I, Ray, am Vigo, shall rule the earth, or whatever. So there's some temptation going on with Ray. Basically, they have to shoot this guy with the plasma. They put him back into the portal. This represents, leaving this world. This is the head of Kronos or Medusa or whatever you want to call it. And it leaves this world. Now, hold on. Okay, sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice. I may have gone a little past what I'm able to do. So we won't do videos this long in the future. But I had a good time. So this guy right here is on the outside. He's like, he's being courageous, okay? He's playing his part, but it's not him. It's him in addition to all of those amazing people behind him that brought all these good vibes and were singing and stuff. And this is basically like, the Grinch that stole Christmas, all the Who's, they're singing Yahoo Dory or whatever the words are. And the Grinch, those good vibes cause his heart to grow 3 times bigger, right? And this is exactly what's happening here. Everyone has asked me, many people have asked me, like, what can we do to prevent it, etc. There's only one thing you can do to make this event not happen. And that's to change the energy, okay? The only way you can change the energy is by changing your energy. And if you do that, you'll become an alchemist because you'll turn everything around you into better energy as well. So this guy wakes up, why am I drippings with goo? He doesn't remember. He doesn't know what happened. He's got amnesia. Another classic sign of many who survived the plasma apocalypse. I'm super sorry. All right, let's see how much we got here. He said you had a violent, prolonged, transformative psychic episode. That's just a bunch of fancy words for you were plasma possessed, buddy. Welcome back to the world. You're not plasma possessed anymore. Good job. And then because it's the energy is amplified, because it was positive energy, super positively charged slime, it's amplifying. They're all in a good mood. They just saved the world and everything, and they have positive bee honey, holy bee honey, whatever you want to call it. Okay, it's plasma byproduct. They have it all over them, and he says, "I love you, man." And he's like, "Yes, I love you too." And it's all about the love. In the end of this movie, it's super cheesy. It's just all about letting go of the hatred, letting go of the division, and returning to love and being friends and smiling and all of the wonderful things that we used to do when we were children, right? Children aren't racist. They don't have that. They'll just run up to anybody. Everyone's my friend, like a puppy, you know? They just see anybody. They're like, oh my God, another person, an extension of myself. How fun. What an opportunity. That's kind of how this movie ends on that note. And so they draw you like a picture. I thought this was a really interesting picture. I'm not really going to break it down or anything. But when they drew pictures like this, they often had little symbols in them when they would point to things. And if you draw lines to like what they're pointing at, it makes like a hidden shape and stuff. So I'll leave that one up to you guys to have some fun with. Then you see the Statue of Liberty fall into the ground because there was an apocalyptic event in the background, just like in Planet of the Apes, right? So I wanted to show you that. That's another symbol of the plasma apocalypse and whatnot. And of course, I didn't want to go anywhere without saying I love Slimer, okay? He's my favorite. He doesn't play a very big part in these movies, but man, like, look at him. He's smiling. He's like a little ugly spud, but he's a good dude, man. He's a good energy, and I love Slimer. This is also the base of the Statue of Liberty. Remember how I said Statue of Liberty represents the plasma volcano, or Mount Meru, which is why you have a sort of star fort action going here at the base of it, which represents the North Pole, or the North Star. And then you've got this sort of step pyramid deal going up, which is only big enough steps for giants to walk on. And then you've got this sort of mountain type structure building, which doesn't serve any purpose except for it to be a pedestal for what is above it, which is the light, the blue beam that shoots up, the eternal flame, which is why the Statue of Liberty is holding on to that eternal flame. All right, so that was our Ghostbusters breakdown. Man, we did a lot today. This was a long video. And it's totally okay if some people took off. You know, I know a lot of people can't eat that much. I don't want you guys to eat that much. So, hey, if you need to come back, watch the rest of the video another time, watch it in pieces or whatever. Or if it got boring or whatever, hey, that's totally fine too. I just want to say thank you. I'm glad that I had somebody to share my insight with and my research and stuff. I love all of the support you guys have given. I've had so many people join as members now. We took our actual first public calls live on the air, or a call live on the air. I thought that went pretty well. Thanks again to our caller for calling in. Let me go ahead and get rid of this picture so we can wrap things up here. And boom. There we go. Okay, cool. So, it is getting a little bit late. I do have my book out if it's on Amazon if you want to check it out. It's basically the Cliff's Notes of the Plasma Apocalypse. Something that is not in here is my revelation on werewolves. And there's not a lot in here about the summertime apocalypse or the summer solstice, okay? So when I write my next book, I'm going to include all of the left out stuff that's not in this one, which is like 2 different things so far. But, you know, there's always more information coming in. I also want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys were amazing today. You guys were so positive. You guys were just like the people in New York that were singing and chanting, or the little Who's in Whoville. Yahoo door. So, hey, thank you. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. I did talk to my brother, who's a ghost hunter. He said he'd be happy to come on again. We're going to go into more detail as to the ghost world, or the ghost apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what I'm going to call it. Probably the ghost apocalypse. I mean, we got zombie apocalypse. Might as well have a ghost apocalypse too. Because that's what the plasma apocalypse is. It is literally every single scenario all wrapped into one. Really fun stuff. I'm going to go ahead and take off. I've said goodbye now for like 5 minutes. I hate saying goodbye, don't you? I just want to hang out and I want to give everybody a big hug. But I can't do that right now. I'm just going to say I love you all. I hope you got something from this video. I hope you found something of value in it. And until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
To